Chapter 8:35. After speaking, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su's relationship became even more intimate. Chu Qingyan looked up and poked his chest with a teasing smile. "Tell me the truth, have you been holding it in for a long time and want to come out and play?" Xiao Su casually replied, "Didn't you say before that you wanted to enjoy the feeling of being pursued?" Chu Qingyan was shocked. She had casually said it before, but he still took it to heart. "Are you serious?" He coldly looked at her. "Don't I look like it?" She wanted to refute something, but she was chilled by this gaze. Chu Qingyan nodded without any backbone. Only then did she see him continue to focus on the road in front of them in satisfaction. Although the big ice cube's words moved her heart, who would chase the girl they liked and take her out for a walk every day? Although the scenery was not bad, she still felt that it was too monotonous. Moreover, after his heartfelt words the day before yesterday, he had not said any sweet words. Didn't he know that girls needed to be coaxed when they were in love? Chu Qingyan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and silently looked away. Forget it, it was already not easy to make this big ice cube take the initiative to pursue her. She should feel satisfied. At least she had moved this ice cube, right? She leaned against the thick shoulder behind her. Xiao Su could feel the dependence of the person in his arms, and he happily bathed in the cool breeze and warm sun. It was only a 3-4 day journey back to Jiangnan, but they had to travel for 7 to 8 days. The two masters were satisfied, but the group of single dogs were suffering. Hua Ling looked at the two people riding the same horse behind them and complained to Turin beside him, "I'm used to fighting and killing. I'm not used to having nothing to do all of a sudden." Turin looked at him. "I don't mind telling Master to transfer you to Water Spirit's place." Water Spirit? Recently, there was an emergency at the border and the Liang family and Fu family were not very peaceful. Water Spirit was busy collecting information and it was said that she had been working day and night for half a month. When Hua Ling thought of this, he waved his hand. "That won't do. You know that I'm not suited for this sort of organizing. It's our gain to be able to live a leisurely life. Perhaps we won't have such an opportunity in the future." Turin sighed as he spoke. Hua Ling looked at the two masters behind him and put his hands behind his head. "Do you still remember when we were on the battlefield?" "Why do you suddenly ask?" Turin looked at him in confusion. Hua Ling smiled. "Thinking about it, it's been 5 years since we left those days of fighting and killing. I don't know if it's because we've been gone for too long, but I suddenly can't remember those dark and bloody years." Turin's gaze drifted into the distance, as if he was reminiscing about the past. "Can't remember?" Actually, it was because he didn't want to think about it. Who would be willing to lick blood from a blade forever? Hua Ling asked in an uncertain voice. "Turin, tell me, will we return to the battlefield? We are Master's fierce cavalry. As long as Master has an order, we will do anything for Master." Turin replied without any hesitation. Hua Ling blinked with a smile. "It's just a casual question. Why are you so serious?" "Hua Ling, I'm worried that this day will come sooner or later." Hearing this, Hua Ling couldn't help putting away his mischievous attitude. He lowered his arm and his eyes became firm. "If that day comes, I will do my best to protect Master." Turin did not reply, but his expression was just as firm as his. Talking about protecting Sichuan? That was too unrealistic and against his will. The one they followed had always been their master. The one they were loyal to and the one they protected had always been their master. So, if there was a day when Master and Sichuan had a falling out, their fierce cavalry would follow him and betray Sichuan. It was that simple. Jean Exen was on the side, silently listening to their words. They did not turn their backs on him, clearly treating him as one of them, so he openly listened. Without knowing why, these words were like a silver hook that pulled on a string in his mind. Some strange and familiar scenes flashed in front of his eyes. He wanted to grab them, but he couldn't see them clearly. "Master, this subordinate will definitely send you out safely. Master, please live well." His eyes were filled with blood as hoarse words filled his mind. Jean Exen felt his head hurt, but he desperately wanted to see the scene inside. But the more he thought about it, the more painful it became. At this time, a small cloth bag flew over and he quickly caught it. The warm feeling made his mind shake. waking him up from the blood that filled the sky. Seeing Jean Xen blankly holding the cloth bag, Hualing winked at him. I just bought some pastries on the way here. I heard it's a specialty snack. Have a taste and don't be so silent. It's not good to be so mature at such a young age. Turin glared at Hualing and handed a pot of water to Jean Xen. Drink some water, the pastries are a bit dry. Jean Xen took the water and opened the cloth bag, revealing 3 or 4 white pastries. He looked up at Turin, who was glaring at Hualing, and the bitterness and irritation in his heart slowly disappeared. He turned around to look at his master sitting on the horse, and a smile appeared in his eyes. It was his master who gave him a second life, so he had to cherish it. Chu Qingyan bit into the pastry in her hand and secretly nodded. Although these pastries can't compare to Huang Yi's, they're still very delicious. Xiao Su did not respond. Chu Qingyan continued, Big Ice Cube, why didn't you bring Huang Yi and the others with you? I naturally have my reasons for not bringing them. Xiao Su's voice was a bit low, as if he didn't want to talk about this topic. She had just casually asked, but she didn't think he would reject it like this. Why? This aroused her curiosity. There's no reason. You just have to remember that I'm doing this for your own good. Xiao Su stroked her long hair as he explained. She nodded and continued to eat the pastries. Is it really good? Xiao Su looked at the thing in her hand. He really didn't understand why girls liked sweet things so much. Do you want to try it? Chu Qingyan could hear the disdain in his voice. She turned around and handed the cloth bag to him. Although it wasn't exquisite, it was still delicious. Xiao Su passed over the cloth bag and leaned closer to the pastries in her hand. While she was in a daze, he opened his mouth and bit down on the small bite mark. Chu Qingyan looked at him and then at the pastries. He was eating from the same spot that she had just eaten from. Then he said, as if he hadn't had enough, the taste isn't bad. She didn't know if he was talking about the pastries or if he was referring to something else. When Chu Qingyan heard this, her face turned red. Xiao Su looked at the red skin that reached her neck and gave a low chuckle. It seemed like the dating process needed to be done a bit longer. It felt pretty good to be able to take advantage of his little wife anytime and anywhere. Chapter 8:36. Along the way, they stopped and played with the flowers, stepped on the grass, looked at the scenery, climbed the mountains, and played with the water. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan looked at the city gate in front of her and smiled. Time flies. You don't want to come back? Why don't we turn around and circle around before coming back? Xiao Su whispered into her ear and suggested in all seriousness. Chu Qingyan's body tensed up and she immediately waved her hand. No. Let's hurry into the city. I haven't seen my parents in a long time. To be honest, along the way, Big Ice Cube would occasionally hug and nibble on her. She was getting more and more embarrassed. She was not as thick-skinned as he was. I thought you were too happy to think about home. Xiao Su leaned against the wall of the carriage, his gaze falling on the delicate and charming person in front of him as he teased. Who was the one who was too happy to think about home? Fortunately, she had insisted on changing carriages at the last stop. Otherwise, she would not be able to bear the embarrassment of riding on the same horse in public. In any case, she, Chu Qingyan, was a big shot. She still had to stay in Jiangnan, okay? Xiao Su knew what she was thinking and stopped teasing her. He was satisfied with the tofu he had taken along the way. It was not good to push her too far. He still had to think about his future welfare. There was a large crowd at the entrance of the Chu mansion. After receiving the news, Mr. and Mrs. Chu, Jin Ling, Yang Xiaohuan, Qingyan Luo, Ethereal, and Xining and Hua Xiu all stretched their necks and waited for their return. When the carriage appeared at the intersection, they waved at it happily. They were finally back. Once the carriage came to a stop, Chu Qingyan jumped down from the carriage and ran happily towards the people waiting for her. Father, Mother, everyone, I'm back. It's good that you're back. When you left, your father and I were worried about you. Mrs. Chu patted her head and said excitedly, I won't do it again. Chu Qingyan said guiltily, Master, you're back. Jin Ling and the others came forward to welcome him. Son-in-law, hurry up and get out of the car. Dan Yang has made chicken soup for you. It's very nutritious. If you don't drink it, Father will drink it all. Father Chu was bouncing in front of the car, dancing with joy. When Xiao Su lifted the curtain of the carriage, he saw this scene. The crowd was waiting happily, lively, real, and worried. It was a feeling that he had never experienced before. The warmth melted the ice in her heart. Bit by bit, it fell to the ground, took root, and began to flourish. The group of people entered the mansion in a lively manner. This was a day for a big reunion, so Chu Machen's mother ordered the kitchen to prepare a welcoming dinner for tonight. Even Hua Xiaoli was left behind. Chu Qingyan changed into a clean set of clothes and walked to the main hall. She heard that the kitchen had prepared many of her favorite dishes. Although she had tasted many local delicacies, she preferred home-cooked dishes. She walked forward with light steps. As soon as she entered the main hall, she saw that almost everyone was present. She looked around and saw that there was only one seat beside Big Ice. She was about to go forward when she saw Cheng Yenluo and the others looking at her ambiguously. She coughed softly and sat down as if nothing had happened. Xiao Su saw that she had changed into a woman's clothes. She looked elegant and beautiful, and a smile appeared in his eyes. He picked up a chicken drumstick and put it in her bowl. Honey-glazed chicken drumstick. Try it. Chu Qingyan put it in her mouth naturally. However, before she could take a bite, she received ambiguous looks from everyone again. She was speechless. What was wrong with them? At this moment, Hua Xiaoli, who was sitting on Chu Qingyan's left, came over and winked in Xiao Su's direction. Tell me honestly, did something happen when you were out? Why do I feel that you two are so close to each other this time? Hua Xiaoli's words reminded her of the scene on the tree that day, as well as the two of them in the carriage and on the back of the horse. They were so intimate. Did something happen? Chu Qingyan swallowed the meat in her mouth, her eyes drifting away. When Hua Xiaoli saw her like this, she knew that there was something fishy going on. Just as she was about to say something, someone announced from outside the door. Official Lin has arrived. No one noticed that the meatball in Hua Xiaoli's chopsticks fell into her bowl. Lin Fengyi walked in. He was still wearing his official robe. It was obvious that he had just come from the yamen. He looked travel-worn. Why did he come back? Hua Xiaoli finally found her voice and asked in a stutter. Chu Qingyan did not notice her voice, but Xiao Su, who was standing beside her, glanced at her. A strange smile appeared on his face as he said, I sent someone to tell him. Hua Xiaoli's mouth twitched. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Previously, she couldn't find him no matter how hard she tried. Now that she didn't want to see him, he actually appeared. It really made her angry. Xiao Su, Qingyan, you were gone for so long this time. If I didn't have something to ask of you, I wouldn't have known that you left Jiangnan. Lin Fengyi's gaze lingered on the two of them. He kept smiling as if he was mocking them. Chu Qingyan could tell that there was a hidden meaning in his words. However, she clearly left because of an urgent matter. Why did everyone look like she was the one who abandoned her family and husband? You talk too much. Let's find a place to sit. Xiao Su glared at him, telling him to stop before he went too far. He was used to seeing his good friend protect his wife. He took advantage of the situation and glanced at the table. Then he sat down beside Hua Xiaoli. He had already seen her when he entered the door. However, this little rabbit looked like she didn't want to see him. Let's eat and chat. Otherwise, the dishes will get cold. Mother Chu greeted everyone with a smile. Thus, the wine cups were exchanged. It was lively and comfortable. Lin Fengyi picked up a piece of pork rib and placed it in the bowl beside him. He leaned over and asked in a low voice, Then why did you leave without saying goodbye this morning? Hua Xiaoli looked at the pork rib in the bowl and listened to his casual words. An inexplicable anger flared in her heart. Why was he the one who took advantage of her? Was he the one who couldn't find her? Was he the one who was pretending at this time? She clenched the chopsticks in her hand. Suddenly, she put them down and stood up. Qingyan, I suddenly remembered that I need to go to a restaurant to collect the bill. I won't stay. Next time, I'll treat you. Goodbye. After speaking, Xiao strode out of the hall without looking at the people around her. This sudden, unforeseen event left everyone scratching their heads in confusion. You guys eat first. I also remembered that I have something to deal with at the yamen. I'll take my leave first. I'll come again another day. The moment Xiao left, Lin Fengyi also stood up. He apologized in a gentle and refined manner. After drinking a cup of wine to apologize, he also left. Is Xiao angry? Chu Qingyan was puzzled. Fengyi followed her. You don't have to worry. Xiao Su picked up some food with his chopsticks. Chu Qingyan looked at his calm appearance. Thinking back to Lin Fengyi's words, she couldn't help pursing her lips into a smile. Perhaps something interesting had happened while she was away. Chapter 837. Just as Xiao Su expected, Lin Fengyi chased after Xiao. Just as Xiao walked out of the door, a hand reached out from behind and grabbed her wrist. She was not prepared and was brought to a side alley. Hey, are you crazy? What are you doing? Xiao only had time to see the tall figure in front of her. She did not need to guess to know who he was. Just as she finished speaking, she was pushed against the wall in the alley. Are you hiding from me? The questioning tone was firm. Lin Fengyi raised his eyebrows and looked at her with certainty. Xiao found it very funny. Shouldn't she be the one asking this question? What position did he have? I'm hiding from you? I didn't do anything wrong. Is there a need to hide from you? Xiao could not help but choke. Oh. Lin Fengyi looked at her inquisitively. Xiao could not stand his gaze and felt uncomfortable all over. She felt like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. You, on the other hand, did something wrong and still have the reason to shout at me. Hurry up and leave. You're really an eyesore. Xiao growled at him. She was afraid that someone familiar would recognize her, so she deliberately lowered her voice. Lin Fengyi felt that this angry little bunny was extremely cute. It was really pleasing to the eye. He had a playful feeling. He tapped her wrist lightly with his finger and leaned forward. From an outsider's perspective, the two of them were pressed together without any gap. What do you want to do? The person in front of her did not speak and suddenly leaned over. They were originally standing very close to each other, but now they were almost touching. Xiao's hair stood on end and her voice trembled. Didn't you say that I did something wrong? I really want to know what I did wrong. He leaned close to her ear and breathed into her sensitive earlobe as he teased her. He still had the face to ask? Xiao flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her other hand that was not suppressed pushed him away. He did not seem to expect that he would be pushed away by her like this. His other hand was also freed. Lin Fengyi used her strength and backed up against the wall. Seeing her vigilant and angry look, he could not help but laugh until he bent over. Xiao still wanted to beat him up, although the chances of winning were not high. However, when she saw his overjoyed expression, she subconsciously stopped in her tracks. Although she didn't like to play with words and ink, due to her father's exhortations, she had more or less learned some ink. Now that she saw Lin Fengyi's unguarded smile, she didn't know what words to use to describe it. She only thought of a passage from a book. For the son of the master, if you add a little more, it will be too long. If you subtract a little less, it will be too short. If you add powder, it will be too white, and if you add vermilion, it will be too red. Her eyebrows were like jade feathers, her skin was as white as snow, her waist was like a bundle of silk, and her teeth were like seashells. She smiled sweetly. Mysterious Sun City, mysterious Sun City. In front of him was the son of the Lin family, and the one who was charmed was the young lady of the Hua family. Although the description was somewhat nondescript, Xiao had to admit that the person in front of her was so good-looking that it made people fall in love with him. Lin Fengyi originally had a good appearance, but because he was a strict and honest official, he hid all his emotions. In the eyes of outsiders, he always had a calm and gentle appearance. No one had ever seen him smile so brightly. Therefore, this smile added another 5 points of charm and handsomeness on top of his 10 points of appearance. Humans were sensory animals, and Xiao was no exception. This smile hooked part of her soul. After laughing, he saw that the little rabbit in front of him was staring at him in a daze. He changed his posture and leaned against the wall, saying confidently and elegantly, "If you look at me like this, I will mistakenly think that you are once again mesmerized by my elegant demeanor. You shameless." A basin of cold water was poured over her. Xiao was so angry that her teeth itched. She wanted to bite him to death, but her face couldn't help but heat up. She had no choice but to quickly leave this place. Otherwise, she would be angered to the point of suffering internal injuries. Sensing that the little rabbit was about to escape, Lin Fengyi took a step forward and reached out to pull her into his embrace. Ignoring her struggles, he tightly imprisoned her in his arms. "Lin Fengyi, miser, scoundrel, what are you trying to do?" Once Xiao's temper flared up, she didn't care about anything. Although she couldn't help but admit that the person in front of her had moved her, she disliked this kind of method of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Moreover, she couldn't figure out what this person wanted to do, so she subconsciously wanted to break free from him. Lin Fengyi allowed her to swing her fists. This bit of pain was nothing. He leaned his head on her shoulder. The fragrance of camellias made him sigh comfortably. "Little rabbit, I haven't had a good rest for half a month. Stop messing around." Xiao had just opened her mouth. Her sharp teeth were just above his shoulder. As long as she lowered her head, she would be able to fiercely bite down. But when she heard his slightly tired voice, she suddenly stopped. While she was in a daze, she heard his long breathing beside her ear. Her entire body was pressed between the wall and his chest, unable to move forward or back away. She wanted to push him away. She also knew that she could push him away, because his hands were wrapped around her waist and he wasn't holding her tightly. But she didn't know why, but her hands didn't have the strength to push him away. She lowered her eyes. It should be because she couldn't bear to. When she heard his pitiful words, her heart softened. Maybe it was like he said. In this half a month he had been too busy, so he didn't have time to look for her. Xiao comforted herself. She didn't know when it started, but she had started to excuse him. But if the truth wasn't like this, she had thousands of ways to make him regret. At this moment, under the warm sun and the gentle breeze, her white clothes fluttered. She chose to temporarily put down her emotions and accompany him as they leaned against each other to sleep. These past few days, she hadn't had a good sleep. Smelling his scent and leaning against his thick and steady chest, she felt as if she was bathing in the sunlight of the grassland. Sleepiness slowly attacked her. At the end of spring and the beginning of summer, the days seemed to be longer. The setting sun pulled the shadows of the two tightly hugging each other long and slanted along the wall. After an unknown amount of time, the sun set in the west, leaving only a bit of afterglow. "Sir." A hurried voice sounded beside the two of them. Lin Fengyi greedily took a deep breath of her fragrance before letting go and turning to his subordinate. Xiao was leaning against the wall with sleepy eyes and looked at the person who had come. It was a bailiff from the yamen. He had his head lowered and didn't dare to look at the two of them. He seemed to be worried that he had disturbed the two of them, but he spoke quickly in a language that she couldn't understand. Xiao felt that he should be busy with something, but when she thought of the two of them hugging each other, she felt awkward. While he was talking to the bailiff, she slipped away. Now wasn't the time to talk about love. Lin Fengyi turned around and smiled. "Little rabbit, you ate me clean, so you have to be responsible for me." Just as Lin Fengyi finished speaking, the person not far away lost her footing and almost fell. She leaned against the wall and turned around to glare at him fiercely. Then she left without looking back. Lin Fengyi looked at her back and was full of smiles. But when he turned around, his expression had returned to his usual cold and righteous expression. Return to the yamen. Chapter 8:38. Still worried? In the courtyard, Xiao walked towards the person standing under the tree with a thin cloak in his hand. As he spoke, he had already draped it over her shoulders. Chu Qingyan turned to look at him and sighed faintly. "Yes, I just heard from Xiao Huan that Xiuli was very strange when I wasn't around. She would often be in a daze alone, and in important meetings, she would often be absent-minded, as if she had a lot on her mind. So I was thinking what exactly happened to Xiuli." In the past, she was always in high spirits, but today she spoke a lot less. I'm really worried. She's alive and kicking, there's nothing to worry about. Xiao Su disagreed. Today, that flowery Shili even made things difficult for the little fellow. Seeing her suffer, Xiao Su was very happy. She's not your friend, of course you would say that. You have no sympathy at all. Chu Qingyan harumphed, not intending to pay him any attention. Xiao Su face-bombed. How did this matter involve him? Feng Yi provoked her. I believe that he will have a way to solve it himself. Chu Qingyan's footsteps paused. Recalling what happened at the dinner table today, she said in a serious tone, Big Ice Cube, let me tell you, if your friend bullies my friend, I won't be merciful to him on your account. Although she did not believe that official Lin would do anything to harm Xioli, she had to say the ugly words first. Although she did not spend much time with Xioli, sometimes, feelings could not be measured by time. Xiao Su placed his hand on her shoulder, straightening her body, and lowered his head to look at her. Don't worry, if he bullies your friend, I will not recognize him on your account. Big Ice Cube, you don't play by the rules. Chu Qingyan was stunned, then reached out to hug his waist, rubbing against his chest. But I like it. There are many things you like about me. Xiao Su smiled. Arrogant fart. Chu Qingyan retorted bluntly. As a result, she was given a chestnut on the head by a certain arrogant person. However, if your friend bullied Feng Yi, what would you do? Xiao Su asked casually. That's impossible. Chu Qingyan was at a loss for words. That's hard to say. Xiao Su rubbed her forehead, deep in thought. It seemed that his good friend, who was pure of heart and few desires, had already been moved by the mundane. Feeling the gentle pressure on her head, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but roll her eyes. It was really like giving a chestnut and a candy. It would be nice if the two of them could become a couple. Chu Qingyan thought. Xiao Su's hand paused. He felt that the person in his arms seemed to be paying too much attention to unimportant people. He patted her head gently and said, Your birthday is in half a month. With this reminder, Chu Qingyan immediately retracted all her thoughts. She guiltily grabbed the clothes in front of his chest. Was Big Ice Block trying to force her to marry him? Have you already thought of what gift to give me? She cleverly changed the topic. All right, she was also looking forward to becoming a real husband and wife with Big Ice Block. However, it was really embarrassing to bring it up at this time, okay? Xiao Su knew that she was shy, so his voice became much gentler. What do you want? You're not ready yet? Chu Qingyan lifted her head from his arms. You can't be like this. You didn't prepare a gift for me. Xiao Su looked at her angry expression. She was becoming more and more like an angry kitten. The smile in his eyes deepened. I'll give you whatever you want. Chu Qingyan frowned. This is different. How is it different? It's a surprise if it's unexpected. If it's something you want, it won't be much of a gift. Do you understand? Chu Qingyan raised her index finger and poked his chest bit by bit, angry that he didn't fight back. Sure enough, Big Ice Block was still Big Ice Block. He didn't understand at all. Wait a minute. You used to build Jai Xing Lu for me, but now you're so perfunctory. Tell me, before you get it, you'll try your best to give me the best. Now that you've got it, it doesn't matter anymore, right? The more she said, the angrier she got. The more she said, the more she felt that this was the case. She couldn't help but raise her voice, wishing that she could push him away. Looking at the spoiled and willful little fellow in his arms, Xiao Su held back his laughter. It seemed that this trip had nurtured her little temper. However, this little fellow who was gentle and polite outside would only show her little sharp teeth in front of him. This made him feel very accomplished. He held her fingers and lowered his head to press against her forehead. His words carried a smile. When did I give you such an illusion? Haven't you been very satisfied with every gift in these 5 years? Ian, you can't just deny it. Chu Qingyan was stunned for a moment. Because of his words, she recalled that he had been the one to accompany her on her birthday these past few years. Every year, he had given her extraordinary surprises. She remembered that on her birthday last year, something happened in the Fu Li mountain range. Many people were injured in an explosion, and Big Ice Block went to deal with it. She originally thought that he wouldn't come back that year, so when she and her parents were about to eat longevity noodles, there was a sudden commotion in the front yard. She was about to send someone to check it out when she turned around and saw a travel-worn person standing in the courtyard, looking at her with a smile in his eyes. "Little fellow, happy birthday." And in his hand was a flower lantern, which reflected the moonlight and was incomparably resplendent. It turned out that after he finished dealing with the matter, he rushed back. On the way, he was so tired that several horses were paralyzed. After traveling through the wind and rain, he appeared in front of her. As for that flower lantern, it was a wooden lantern that he had personally made under the guidance of the wood spirit. It was not like the paper lanterns, which would fade with the wind and rain and become broken and useless. He had said, "Ian, the things that I, Xiao Su, want to give you, have always been faithful and will not change." Beautiful memories always had a warmth that burned her heart, making her feel warm all over. "You remember now?" Xiao Su's voice brought her back from her thoughts of the past. The haziness dissipated, and what she saw was his eyes. They were like a whirlpool, as if they wanted to suck her in. The past is the past, and the present is the present. You still have to prepare well, or else I definitely won't forgive you. Although she said this, her eyes were already filled with a smile. Xiao Su knew that she didn't mean what she said, so he gave a low laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Chu Qingyan keenly heard his soft laugh. She grabbed his sleeve and didn't let him go, but she also couldn't help laughing with him. "I was thinking, should I tell you what the present is in advance?" Xiao Su rubbed his chin and looked at her thoughtfully. Chu Qingyan saw the mischievous smile in his eyes and wanted to refuse. In any case, she would know after a while, but her heart was itching and she couldn't hold back her curiosity. "Tell me secretly." She blinked her eyes, her face red. Xiao Su looked at her attractive little face and his heart moved. He leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Chu Qingyan's face was completely red. She jumped out of his embrace and pointed at his face, reprimanding him. You're not serious." Xiao Su's lips curved into a bright smile. As for the beauty in front of him, her face was red like a peach blossom. Before the storm, the precious smile was moving. "I still remember, back then your smile was moving, like a smile in anger. I still remember, back then, your smile promised to marry you for life. A period of elegance, a period of moonlight, a period of romance." Chapter 839. She hadn't seen Lin Fengyi since they parted in the alley that day. Hua Xiaoli sat in the inner courtyard of Hibiscus Pavilion, looking lonely. "We've placed more than 10 orders today. Business is getting better and better." Chu Qingyan flipped through the list in her hand, propping up her chin with a smile. Recently, the continuation brand had released many new products. They would release a new one every once in a while, causing a sensation every time. Everyone, from the aristocrats to the commoners, loved beauty regardless of status. Yes, the supply in Lianqing has returned to normal, and the store's business is on the right track. The Chen family seems to have gotten into some trouble recently, so they don't have the energy to cause trouble. We can rest easy now. Cheng Yanluo closed the account book in her hand. Her eyes shone with a golden light, as if she could see a wave of banknotes flying toward her. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. Her gaze fell on Xiao Huan, who was listening to them seriously while calculating the accounts on the abacus. Xiao Huan had grown a lot during this period of time with Jin Ling. It could be said that she had been reborn. She was no longer that timid little girl. She had always believed that experience would become a person's most precious spiritual wealth. Chu Qingyan's gaze swept past Xiao Huan and finally landed on Hua Xiaoli, who had been sitting there silently since early in the morning. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Recently, Hua Xiaoli had always been absent-minded. She wouldn't say anything even if she asked. Forget it, she would ask her when she felt like talking. "Little girl, what do you plan to do next?" Cheng Yanluo rested her chin on her hands and looked at her calmly. Yang Xiaohuan stopped calculating the abacus and looked expectant. Hua Xiaoli also had the same thought. Yan Luo's words were exactly what she had been thinking for the past few days. She thought for a moment, then looked at the crowd and said, "Recently, there have been a lot of orders from other places and countries, so I think our business shouldn't be limited to Jiangnan. I want to open a chain. The so-called chain is the branch store. What do you think, Xiaoli?" Hua Xiaoli smiled and nodded. "I have the same idea. Although our Hua family's business has always been in Jiangnan, it's not that we haven't thought of expanding outwards. It's a pity that we've always failed. However, I believe that with the continuation of our brand, we'll definitely be popular everywhere." "That's a bold statement, but I like it." Cheng Yanluo clapped her hands in agreement. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and smiled. "Since this rule has been passed, let's move on to the next one." "Eh? You have other plans?" Cheng Yanluo straightened her back in surprise. Chu Qingyan said in a serious tone, "My goal is not only in skincare and makeup. I also want to expand into other industries." "For example?" Hua Xiao's interest was piqued. She had always believed in Qingyan's ability. There was nothing she wouldn't dare to do. Eat, drink, and play. Chu Qingyan smiled. "That's quite ambitious of you, but I like it." Cheng Yanluo's interest was piqued when she heard these words. She seemed to be having a lot of fun. "Although it sounds like a big appetite, the blood in my body seems to be stirring. I really want to show off my skills. Qingyan, tell us about your ideas." Hua Xiaoli winked at her and gestured for her to continue. Chu Qingyan chuckled as she began to tell him about her plans for this period of time. She had discovered long ago that sunflower seeds didn't exist in this era. 2 months ago, she had sent people to look for sunflowers. The so-called sunflowers were sunflowers. Fortunately, Su Yi had told her a few days ago that he had found the plants she wanted and had obtained the seeds. As long as she put in some effort to plant them, she would be able to cultivate a large sunflower forest. Then she would be able to sell the sunflower seeds. "Can these sunflower seeds be eaten?" Yang Xiaohuan asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "Of course. As long as you add the ingredients and stir-fry it in the fire, it will become a delicious snack. The finished product will be sent over in 2 days. You'll know if it sells well when you try it." Chu Qingyan kept them in suspense. Everyone's curiosity was piqued. This was the first time they had heard of such a thing. They didn't know if it would work. However, when they thought of the continuation product, wasn't it also unheard of? Everyone was looking forward to it. "What about drinking?" Cheng Yanluo asked eagerly. With the sunflower seeds, the other 3 wouldn't disappoint. "Sure enough, I've discovered a new way to make wine. Distillation." Chu Qingyan looked at the 3 pairs of sparkling eyes in front of her and couldn't help but smile. Then, she began to explain the method of making wine. Her mouth was dry. After she finished, she saw the 3 gluttonous cats drooling. "Little girl, what about the wine? Is there a finished product? I want to have a sip." Cheng Yanluo licked the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were shining. "Me too," Hua Xiaoli and Yang Xiaohuan said in unison. Chu Qingyan immediately raised her hand to signal them to calm down. "The equipment is more troublesome. I drew the blueprint a few days ago and asked Mu Ling to design it for me. After calculating the time, it should arrive in Jiangnan in 2 days. I'll personally make it for you to try." Then it's settled. I'm drooling just thinking about it. Chu Qingyan wiped the cold sweat on her forehead. If she had known about this, she would have waited for the finished product to be ready before telling them. Otherwise, she would have been annoyed to death by them before the wine was ready. But since we're going to make wine, it seems that we have to start planting grapes. This is a huge project. Grapes are precious and difficult to raise. It's really a headache. Hua Xiaoli woke up from her joy and began to plan for the long term. Chu Qingyan nodded, but her tone was not worried. I've already thought about this before. I've sent people to search for the vineyards in several villages in the north. Because it's relatively remote and the transportation is not convenient, few people know about it. I've already negotiated a deal with Su Air. They will provide us with the raw materials. As expected of a little girl. It turns out that you've already started preparing for it. Today is really an eye-opener for us. Cheng Yanluo patted her on the shoulder and couldn't hide the admiration in her voice. Chu Qingyan shrugged. Before the army moves, the food and fodder move first. Oh, you've been with your husband for a long time. You speak like him. Hua Xiuli teased her. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders and accepted their teasing. However, we should also have our own vineyard. I don't like to be restricted by others. Let's put this matter aside for now. When the time comes, I will transfer a few people to be responsible for the planning and planting of the vineyard. The three nodded in agreement. What about the fun and games? With the first two items opening the way, the three were even more curious and looking forward to the remaining two items. Chu Qingyan couldn't stand their urging and began to explain the rest of the fun and games one by one. Chapter 840. Chu Qingyan felt a little thirsty after explaining the pleasures of life. However, when she saw how excited the three children were, she knew that what she had just said would soon become a reality. After Chu Qingyan walked out of the shop, Cheng Yenluo followed behind her. Shall we take a walk? Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. Cheng Yenluo nodded nonchalantly. The wind blew gently and the willows swayed gently. The two of them walked along the willow bank in Jiangnan. All they could see was the green willow branches and the sparkling river. Little girl, the fields you mentioned just now all sounded good. Cheng Yenluo was no longer as lively as she had been in the shop. Instead, there was a hint of maturity in her smile. Chu Qingyan blinked. You seem to have something to say. Cheng Yenluo looked at her and smiled. I can't escape your eyes. That's because your thoughts are written all over your face. Go ahead, I'm all ears. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. In that case, I'll get straight to the point. Cheng Yenluo stood under a willow tree. She narrowed her eyes and said bluntly, although it sounds like you're fully prepared for these 4 fields, I don't know why, but I still feel that you're being a little too hasty. Tell me about it. Chu Qingyan broke a willow branch and played with it in her hand. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, but it was hard to decipher the meaning behind her smile. Cheng Yenluo nodded and continued, because from what I know about you, you won't advance in all 4 fields simultaneously. Instead, you'll break through them one by one. You've always sought stability in the past. Now, you've spared no effort and invested all your manpower and energy. Although the prospects you've analyzed are good, if you stumble, you won't be able to make the cash flow, and all your money will go down the drain. Have you thought about that? Chu Qingyan took a deep look at the person beside her. Although she was the one who had pulled her into the partnership, she rarely expressed her views on business. She did not expect her to see through the risks behind her so quickly and not be tempted by the prospects she had imagined. It seemed that she had really chosen the right partner. After saying that, Cheng Yenluo looked at her attentively, only to find that she was staring at her without blinking. She couldn't help but be stunned. Then, she saw her suddenly smile. Yenluo, I know what you're thinking. I'm also very clear about the consequences of losing everything if we're not careful. You can say that I'm taking a gamble this time. A bet? Cheng Yenluo was surprised. Chu Qingyan nodded. In fact, she didn't want to reveal this matter so early, but since Yenluo had already asked, she had nothing to hide. I need a large sum of money in a short period of time. What I earn from continuing the brand is far from enough. I need a lot more. Upon hearing this, Cheng Yenluo was even more puzzled. As long as we continue to work hard, the money earned from maintaining the brand will be enough for us to spend the rest of our lives without any worries. Why do you want to earn so much money in such a short time? Are you in some kind of trouble? Chu Qingyan's fingers tightened slightly, and the willow branch bent into a circle in her palm. She stared at her palm and said slowly, because I may not have that much time left. Recently, more and more news has been suppressed on Big Ice's desk. The political strife in the imperial court is getting more and more intense, especially after the Sichuan army has been defeated by the enemy. I'm afraid that the days of peace are numbered. Wait, didn't your highness intend to withdraw from the political strife? Cheng Yenluo was shocked. Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. Sometimes, it's one thing to make one's own decision, and another to be forced by circumstances. Big Ice suppressed the news because he didn't want me to worry. But how could I not know how bad the situation is now? As she spoke, she turned to look at the bustling streets of Jiangnan behind her. Her voice became faintly discernible. Look at this place. The people are living and working happily, unaffected. In fact, it's just the calm before the storm. You mean to say that you have to be fully prepared to help His Highness when the time comes? Cheng Yenluo suddenly understood why she was doing this. Chu Qingyan did not deny it. Didn't you say that I am a person who likes to plan before acting? That's why the 4 major domains are my preparations. Perhaps you feel that I am being too hasty, but please believe me. I will not let you guys suffer any losses. This matter has been in my mind for a long time, and I have already made the necessary preparations. As long as we work together in the end, everything that I have said today will become a part of our business. Cheng Yenluo stared blankly at the person in front of her. She was clearly the same age as her and younger than her, but she was always able to say such shocking things. So what the little girl meant was that she didn't know if Xiao Su would participate in the political strife in the imperial court, but she had to prepare for the worst possible outcome for Xiao Su. Money. No matter what she did, she couldn't do without money, especially at certain special times. This little girl was always full of surprises. Since you've said so, as a friend, how can I sit back and do nothing? If I lose the bet, I'll just go back to the medical hall and continue to be a doctor. Anyway, the good life I have now is because of you. But if I win the bet, then I can live a good life. Cheng Yenluo winked at her. Chu Qingyan nodded with a smile. Her gaze turned to the sparkling river, and a wave of heat surged in her heart. This time she would give it her all. Meanwhile, Cheng Yenluo looked at her with a gentle gaze. Little girl, I hope that your efforts for Xiao Su won't be in vain. The days passed in such a lively manner. Business has been good recently. Why don't we go out for a meal? By the way, I want to visit the Fengyue brothel today. I heard that there are a few artists who are quite good-looking. Let's go and have a look. Cheng Yenluo stood up from behind the desk, stretched, and walked out in high spirits. Chu Qingyan pointed at her back and said to Hua Xiaoli, "She's restless again. I knew she couldn't control her temper." Hua Xiaoli raised her eyebrows lazily and said in a light voice, "I'm not going. It's boring." With that, she stood up and drifted past Cheng Yenluo at a leisurely pace. Cheng Yenluo looked at Hua Xiaoli suspiciously and then cast a questioning look at Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan spread her hands, indicating that she didn't know. Because there was one less person, Cheng Yenluo had to give up on her plan to visit the artists. During dinner, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su ate at the same table. What has Lord Lin been busy with recently? Chu Qingyan thought of Hua Xiaoli and couldn't help but ask the person beside her. What do you want to know? Xiao Su looked at her with his chopsticks paused in his hand. I feel that Hua Xiaoli's mood has been unstable recently. It must have something to do with Lord Lin, so I want to help her. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and suddenly remembered that Big Ice Cube had asked her what she wanted if they were to get married. She couldn't help but tilt her head and smile. Big Ice Cube, let Fengyi and Hua Xiaoli be our groomsmen and bridesmaids. It seems that I have to do something. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and said something inexplicable. Lin Fengyi and Hua Xiaoli suddenly shivered. Chapter 841. In less than 2 days, the sunflower seeds were placed in front of Hua Xiaoli and the others. Are these the sunflower seeds you were talking about? Cheng Yenluo reached out and took one out. It looked like a small pebble, but it had gray stripes. It looked very unappetizing. Hua Xiaoli, Yang Xiaohuan, and the others looked at Chu Qingyan in bewilderment. Chu Qingyan didn't explain. She took one and cracked it open with her teeth. Then she rolled the seeds into her mouth and chewed. She sighed and said, "Delicious." The other 3 followed suit. When they tasted the fruit, they were instantly shocked. Then they picked up another one and ate it. They couldn't stop eating as if they were possessed by gluttons. Wow, this is the first time I've eaten such a delicious snack. Qingyan, I'm impressed. Hua Xiaoli gave her a thumbs up as she continued eating. This is unheard of. You're too good at finding treasures. Cheng Yenluo quickly stuffed the seeds into her mouth. Yang Xiaohuan, on the other hand, used her actions to prove her master's praise. However, compared to the other two, she ate much more gracefully. So, do you have any objections to my eating now? Chu Qingyan leaned against the main seat with a folding fan in her hand. Her index finger hooked the pendant at the end of the fan. She swung the folding fan in a flirtatious manner. The three of them looked at each other and gave her a thumbs up in unison. Chu Qingyan smiled freely and elegantly. Sometimes, facts spoke louder than words. I've already told them how to fry the sunflower seeds. When the time comes, as long as you don't let anyone leak it, our market will be huge. However, sunflower seeds alone aren't enough. At this point, Chu Qingyan turned to Hua Xioli and said, Xioli, use your connections to find a pastry expert. We have to expand the snack industry. Then, she instructed Yenluo, use your medical skills to research a few healthy snacks. We have to go the route that no one else has taken. After that, Chu Qingyan called out to young Xiaohuan. Xiaohuan, I'll give you 10 days to help me recruit people. You can't just make up the numbers. They have to go through a selection process. The most important thing is loyalty. The sooner the better because we'll be investing in manpower and resources soon. The three of them nodded and accepted the task. They didn't know when it started, but Chu Qingyan stood out among them and became the leader. It should be her ability. She was smart, knowing how to seize opportunities and understand the psychology of customers. She had endless creative ideas. It was just like how some people were born to be leaders, and Chu Qingyan was the one they looked up to. They were willing to submit to her. After assigning the tasks, everyone dispersed. Because time. After reviewing the recent accounts, Chu Qingyan stretched and stood up. It was already evening. She walked out of the door. Jean Xen, who was standing at the side, immediately followed. She wondered if Big Ice Cube was anxious from waiting. Chu Qingyan strolled along the street. The sun was about to set. Before the afterglow dissipated, the lanterns at the end of the street were lit up one by one. The wind at night was slightly hot, and the clothes of the commoners who passed by were getting thinner and thinner. Chu Qingyan raised her head slightly and looked at the roasted clouds in the sky. She thought to herself, summer is almost here. Jean Xen. Your subordinate is here. How long have you been by my side? Chu Qingyan asked casually. 4 years and 8 months. Jean Xen accurately reported the time. Chu Qingyan smiled. Time flies. I didn't expect you to still remember. Your subordinate's life was saved by you. I will never forget it. Jean Xen replied respectfully. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. You have helped me a lot over the years. Don't mention the things of the past. Have you recalled any memories of the past? Jean Xen paused. Some time ago, there were some shadows in my mind. I don't know if they are memories of the past. But recently, I can't recall them. Chu Qingyan's gaze froze. Then, she smiled brightly at him. If you remember, you can tell me. I can help you find your family. Thank you for your kindness, master. But this subordinate doesn't want to know about the past. Jean Xen replied seriously. Although Chu Qingyan didn't understand, she didn't ask. If you need anything, just tell me. I will do my best to help you. Yes. Jean Xen replied. He continued to look around vigilantly to protect his master's safety. Chu Qingyan saw that he really didn't care and sighed softly in her heart. When she couldn't find out Jean Xen's identity, Big Ice Cube said that someone was deliberately covering up his past. So she thought that to be able to hide from Xiao Lai Chi and do something under their eyes, his identity shouldn't be simple. She had been waiting for Jean Xen to remember the past, but she didn't expect that she would wait for 5 years. She wasn't someone who liked to interfere with other people's private lives. But in these years, Jean Xen and Xining's relationship seemed to be getting closer. Although she thought highly of this pair, she couldn't allow any accidents to happen. She didn't want the two of them to suffer. Now that she saw that he didn't seem to care, she couldn't help shaking her head and laughing. It seemed like she was worrying too much. Jean Xen's heart was firm. Maybe if something really happened, he would be able to handle his own matters. Forget it, we'll talk about it when the time comes. She clasped her hands behind her back and slowly walked towards the residence. Just as she entered the residence, the anxious Hua Ling came up to greet her. My great aunt, why are you back so late? Master is about to send someone to find you. Chu Qingyan's head began to hurt when she heard this. Aren't I back now? Don't worry, I'll go find His Highness now. Hua Ling followed beside her and nagged, Little princess consort, this subordinate isn't talking too much, but we don't lack money. You don't need to work so hard, otherwise master will be heartbroken. As soon as he said this, he met a pair of eyes with a ghost of a smile. Oh, little princess consort, did this subordinate say something wrong? Hua Ling, have you noticed that you're becoming more and more like an old maid? After she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan looked at him from head to toe before she left. Hua Ling came back to his senses and tears flowed down his wide face. Isn't this subordinate worrying so much for you and master? This subordinate is a respected cavalry lord. How can you compare me to an old maid? Heavens! Hua Ling felt like his knee had been hit by an arrow. Sob, he wanted to find Turin for comfort. Jin Xen looked at Hua Ling, who looked like he had been struck by lightning. He shook his head and followed his master in front. They quickly arrived at the courtyard. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and walked in. She had already prepared herself to be lectured by the big ice cube, but when she looked up and saw the person sitting at the table, she couldn't help being stunned. Kai, come over quickly. I've been waiting for you for so long that I've almost starved to death. Father Chu happily waved at her. Mother Chu on the side smiled and said, We came together today. Go wash your hands and prepare to eat. Chu Qingyan looked at a certain person and silently moved over. Chapter 842. Chu Qingyan had just sat down when her father put a large piece of fish in her bowl. More. You've been so skinny lately. Dried fish? That was an exaggeration. Chu Qingyan's father didn't stop. He picked up a crab leg and put it in Xiao Su's bowl. You have some too. Don't be jealous. Chu Qingyan clearly saw the corner of his mouth twitch. She remembered that he didn't like seafood, and the crab leg wouldn't look very elegant when he ate it. She thought that he would probably throw it away in disgust. But the outcome was unexpected. Big Ice Cube picked up the crab leg and slowly peeled the shell. He slowly picked out the crab meat and put it in her bowl. Chu Qingyan's father nodded in satisfaction. His son-in-law was taking good care of Kai. How nice. Chu Qingyan's mother looked at the two of them and felt even more relieved. Chu Qingyan quietly lowered her head and ate the crab meat. He was the one who didn't want to eat it. But Big Ice Cube's culinary skills were really good. If it were her, she would probably have to bite the crab leg into pieces and it would be difficult to pick out the crab meat. This crab meat was really delicious. She was greedy. Then, Xiao Su's bowl was filled with a lot of crab legs. Xiao Su looked up at her. Chu Qingyan picked up another crab leg and put it on top of her head. She smiled at him fawningly. She was really a little foodie. While Mr. and Mrs. Chu were still in shock, he continued to peel the crab's shell slowly without making any noise. The difficult crab's shell was peeled off by his fingertips, revealing the tender white and red meat inside. Chu Qingyan ate the crab meat he handed to her as if it wasn't her place at all. Son-in-law, you have my style back in the day. Chu Qingyan's father stroked his beard and smiled proudly. Chu Qingyan's mother glanced at her husband. How could he say these things in front of the younger generation? Don't worry, I'll take good care of Kai. After peeling the last crab leg, Xiao Su took a face towel from the side and slowly wiped his fingers. Chu Qingyan ate the delicacies in her bowl while admiring the beautiful man beside her. There were some people who were born noble. No matter what they did, there would always be a kind of noble aura. For example, this person who had just finished peeling shells, which sounded very incompatible with his status, made people feel that his actions were elegant and calm. It was as if he was not peeling shells, but wiping a sword. She sighed as she ate. Indeed, comparisons were odious. She heard every word of the conversation at the banquet, and her face turned slightly red. Big Ice Cube always acted like a gentleman in front of her parents, but in private, he was a bad guy who liked to take advantage of others and was calculative about every little thing. She mistook the rib in her mouth for him and bit down hard. Therefore, after the meal, Mr. and Mrs. Chu came in high spirits and left. I'm going to send father and mother off. Just as she was about to turn around, someone grabbed her collar from behind, and a voice that seemed to be laughing yet not laughing entered her ears. Don't go and never come back. Chu Qingyan shrunk her neck. Big Ice Cube is the one who knows me best. I'll be back soon. After she got her freedom, she immediately followed the person in front of her. Kai, you have to get along well with His Highness. Don't bully him. Mrs. Chu held her hand and said, He's the one who bullies me, okay? Mother, you're helping an outsider. Daughter, if our son-in-law treats you badly, you can tell me. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Mr. Chu said with his hands on his waist and narrowed his eyes. Father is the best. She nodded heavily. But he looks like a good man who protects his wife, just like father. So father is relieved. Chu Machen's father patted his daughter's head and praised himself. Then he left the courtyard happily with his wife. Chu Qingyan was petrified on the spot. The fallen leaves flew and flew, and it was so sad. Sigh, if one day she quarreled with Big Ice Cube, father and mother would definitely think that she bullied him. This was the advantage of having a mother-in-law and father-in-law. Once a family coup happened, everyone would be on the opposite side of her. No, she had to pull Big Ice Cube into her camp. That way, nothing would happen. Thinking of this, she walked back with light steps. When she walked to the center of the courtyard, Little Hai and Little Annoyance, who had followed her scent, surrounded her. Glutinous Rice Ball and the other two little ones rubbed against her legs and acted coquettishly. Little Hai and Little Annoyance still didn't like each other. She had been busy with business these 2 days and didn't have time to play with them. She couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Because Ethereal said that these animals were very intelligent and could understand human language. They also recognized her as their master. As long as she treated them well, they would follow her. She reached out and patted Little Hai and Little Annoyance's heads. She said apologetically, I've neglected you these days. Tomorrow, I'll take you out to play. Little Hai was very proud and didn't want to be patted on the head. But when it heard that its master wanted to take it out to play, it couldn't help but move its head closer to her palm. Little Annoyance whimpered in enjoyment. As she spoke, Chu Qingyan squatted down and patted by Yutang and Shuabao. Then, she picked up Glutinous Rice Ball and said with a smile, I'll take you out for a walk tomorrow. Are you happy? Glutinous Rice Ball grinned and stuck out its tongue to lick her hand, showing that it was very happy. Right at this moment, a light cough came through the air. Before Chu Qingyan could react, the 5 beside her all cast dissatisfied gazes in the same direction. Have you neglected them only recently? As he spoke, a clear breath was already in front of her. Chu Qingyan cried in her heart. Sure enough, he was going to settle accounts with her. Xiao. Translation, you're already an adult, yet you're still fighting with us for our affection. Awoo. Translation, master belongs to us. The few at the side cried at him in disdain. Xiao Su gave them a look and they immediately quieted down. Little Hai and Little Annoyance only looked at each other. Translation, Little Annoyance's eyes. Anyway, master wants to take us out to play. Let's not lower ourselves to his level. Translation, Little Hai's eyes. And don't bother with a loser. Let's go. The two who disliked each other reached a rare consensus in the face of a greater threat. After acting coquettishly in front of their master, they raised their chins and arrogantly walked away. When only the two of them were left in the courtyard, Chu Qingyan felt that the silence made her flustered. Just as she was about to say something, a hot chest pressed against her back. I was actually ridiculed by them. Ian, don't you think you should make it up to me? He lowered his head and leaned close to her ear. Chu Qingyan felt that the air was filled with his breath and couldn't help but swallow. Then, you're going out with us tomorrow? Her voice trembled slightly halfway because a pair of hands suddenly appeared on her waist. He put his chin on her shoulder and hugged her from behind in a very ambiguous posture. Just this? Not enough. Then you still want, what? Before she could finish her sentence, her words were blocked. The moonlight shone down on the two young bodies as they slanted to the ground. The moon couldn't help but hide in the clouds to peek. It really was a hot and affectionate night. Chapter 843. When the moon tore through the clouds and shone down on the earth, the two people under the shadow of the tree separated. She leaned against him and closed her eyes, trying to regain her composure. "Have you been busy for the past 2 days?" His deep and hoarse voice sounded in her ear. His hoarse voice reminded her of his passionate murmurs just now. The heat that had finally subsided surged up again, and her pink little face was quickly covered with a thin layer of red. She turned her eyes away and replied, "So busy that you don't have time to accompany me?" "Yeah." When she heard the last syllable, it made her breath hitch a few times. She opened her mouth, not knowing how to answer. She knew that her big ice cube was feeling uncomfortable right now. To be honest, when did he become so clingy? "Don't change the topic." Xiao Su seemed to have seen through her thoughts as he added a sentence unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. She turned around and squeezed into his arms. She tugged at his clothes and explained in a small voice, "Don't you have your own things to do?" "That seems to be 2 different things." Xiao Su carelessly played with the hair on her shoulder. "No, it's the same thing. You do your thing, and I do mine." She tried to confuse his question. "Did I neglect you because of work?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. There was a smile in his eyes, but he liked to see the little fellow jumping around. She gulped. If she really wanted to argue, he really didn't. No matter how busy the big ice cube was, he had never neglected her. Unless they were going out, he would accompany her for every meal. If there was anything good, he would send it to her first. He always put her matters first before dealing with his own matters. Seeing that the person in his arms was speechless, Xiao Su finally couldn't help but chuckle softly. Chu Qingyan heard the deep chuckle from his thick chest and reacted. "Okay, you're teasing me." Xiao Su reached out to hold her little fist and locked his eyes on her. He dragged out his voice and said, "Don't you feel guilty about neglecting me because you've been busy recently?" Chu Qingyan wasn't stupid. She could tell that he was teasing her. But now that she thought about it, she did feel guilty. She took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck and smiled sincerely. "I was wrong. It's just that I've been expanding my field recently, and I've been really busy. You said that you would let me do what I like. You can't go back on your word, right? That doesn't deprive you of your right to be by my side." Xiao Su gently tapped her nose and smiled. "After I'm done with my work, I'll spend some time with you," she negotiated. Xiao Su pondered. Chu Qingyan panicked. "Big iceberg, you can't be like this." Xiao Su sighed. "Sure enough, I'm not as important as your career." She was embarrassed. "Big iceberg, it's fine if you're jealous of Little Hai and the rest, but now you're not even letting go of my business. I didn't realize that you had the potential to be clingy in the past." She lifted her finger and poked at his chest as she teased him. "You can call this the fun between lovers." As soon as he said that, her fingers forgot to move. She just stared at him blankly. Was she hallucinating? Big Iceberg actually said something like that? She must be dreaming. Xiao Su chuckled and pecked her pink lips. Then he hugged her body and the smile in his eyes faded. He said softly, "Don't tire yourself out. Because my heart will ache. Because I know the reason behind you doing so much, my heart will ache even more." When she heard that, she knew that he acquiesced to what she had just said. Chu Qingyan nodded in his arms and smiled sweetly. The next day, Chu Qingyan had just opened her eyes and was about to get out of bed when she was startled by the lineup in front of the bed. Little Hai, Little Annoyance by Yutong, Snowflake Cake, and Glutinous Rice Ball were lined up in a row. They stared at her without blinking, as if they were sending her a message. "Master, didn't we agree to go out and play today?" She really wanted to facepalm. They were here to collect debts. When they saw that she had woken up, the 5 of them immediately shook their heads and wagged their tails against her hand. Translation: Master, the sun is shining on your butt. Hurry up and get up. Chu Qingyan could only accept her fate and get out of bed. Sure enough, it wasn't easy to be a poop picker. "How did you guys get in?" The door was clearly closed. Little Hai looked at her with disdain. Then Glutinous Rice Ball cleared her doubts and barked at the wide-open window. Chu Qingyan sighed. It seemed like she had to prevent fire, theft, and window flips in the future. After brushing her teeth and washing her face under the covetous gazes of the five, Chu Qingyan walked to the door and opened it. The morning sun instantly shone in. She couldn't get used to the light and squinted her eyes. Then she saw a figure standing against the light. After seeing clearly, Chu Qingyan choked on a mouthful of blood. Heavens, even Big Ice Cube came to collect debts. She clearly didn't want to run away, so why were they all afraid that she would run away? Good morning, it's not early anymore. Let's get ready to leave after eating. Xiao Su turned around and said to her. The slightly raised corner of his mouth seemed to hide a deeper meaning. Chu Qingyan accepted her fate again. When they were about to leave, Chu Qingyan looked at the three little ones nestled in her arms, resting their chins on her arm and rubbing against her feet. Then she looked at Big Ice Cube, Little Hai, and Little Annoyance. She touched her nose. This situation seemed to be a bit tricky. Why don't you let them sit in their own carriage? Xiao Su frowned. Chu Qingyan immediately reached out to calm the five little ones that were a bit restless because of Big Ice Cube's words. Then she gave a faint sigh. Do you think the possibility is high? Xiao Su choked. He could imagine that the five of them would definitely follow. He gave up on this idea. But seeing the little ones calmly enjoying the comfort of the little ones, Xiao Su was a bit unhappy. He reached out and quickly picked up the three little ones on her legs, arms, and feet. Then he threw them onto the soft couch on the side. Then with a bit of strength, he pulled her into his embrace. After doing all of this, he leaned against the wall of the carriage in satisfaction. In the blink of an eye, they left their master's side. How could they be happy? Very quickly, they began to fight for their master. In an instant, the entire carriage was shaking so much that it was about to fall apart. I knew it. With Little Annoyance and the others here, they wouldn't be peaceful. Hua Ling smiled in schadenfreude. As soon as he said this, a white ball was thrown out of the window and accurately landed on Hua Ling. Hua Ling did not move. The white ball used his shoulder and jumped back into the carriage. It was another life and death struggle. Hua Ling looked at his torn clothes and a row of crows flew over his head. Turin shook his head. Serves you right. In the end, Chu Qingyan sat on Xiao Su's lap. Bai Yutong and snowflake cake were lying at her feet. Glutinous rice ball was nestled in her lap and Little Annoyance was lying on the side. Little Hai stood on the side and coldly watched. He let out a snort. Stupid. There were a few words written above Chu Qingyan's head. It really was too big to cry. Chapter 844. When they arrived at their destination, there were already people waiting there. Qingyan, Qingyan's family. Oh, what a cute little fox and a big eagle. The cheers from Hua Xiao drifted over along with the summer wind. Xiao Su paused as he got off the car. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at the person waving vigorously. He turned to look at the person behind him. Why is this noisy person here? Hearing Big Ice Cube's unhappy voice, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but gulp. She laughed and said, when Hua Xiao sent someone to get the account book last night, I mentioned it casually. I didn't expect her to come today. I don't want to see her. Xiao Su snorted. But isn't it more lively with more people? Chu Qingyan couldn't figure it out, but Chu Qingyan was a little angry at how he treated his friend. Seeing the two of them dilly-dallying, Hua Xiao walked over quickly. She happened to hear the two of them talking. Her lips curled into a smile that was asking for a beating. So you want to have your own world. But unfortunately, I'm going to be the big lantern today. After saying this to Xiao Su, Hua Xiao bumped Chu Qingyan with her shoulder and teased, Oh, your family's possessiveness is quite strong. As soon as she said this, she felt a gaze colder than the coldest winter. Chu Qingyan looked at Big Ice Cube faintly. So Big Ice Cube was here because of this. All right, since you're already out today, let's have fun. Don't put on such a long face. She reached out and hugged his hand, indicating that for her sake, he shouldn't make things difficult for Hua Xiao. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He couldn't put the little fellow in a difficult position. He reluctantly agreed. His handsome eyes glanced at Hua Xiao. I'll leave these few to you. Ah! Hua Xiao's eyes widened. The person who spoke had already dragged his little wife away in large strides. Heavens, how can this person be like this? I'm here to take a stroll, not to serve your pet? Xiao stomped her feet angrily at the backs of the two people. Unfortunately, they were already far away. She left Xiao, and the others staring at her. Speaking of which, your master was pulled away just like that. Don't you want to chase after him? Don't you want to share this wonderful time with your master? Don't you think that the person who took over your master is very hateful? Do you want to teach him a lesson? The more Xiao spoke, the more spirited he became. His eyes were shining as if he could foresee Xiao Su being bullied to the point where he couldn't even call for help. However, she didn't notice that the few crouching on the grass had already turned around to play by themselves. When she finished speaking, she realized that there was nothing in front of her. Hey, aren't you going to take revenge? Xiao roared angrily at the few of them. Xiao had already taken the three little ones to catch butterflies. Only Xiao, who was about to spread his wings and fly high, turned around and rolled his eyes at her. The expression translated, "Master has already brought us out to play. Why should we ruin her date? Idiot." Then, Xiao flew away. Although she didn't understand the animal language, Xiao seemed to understand that expression. She instantly withered in the wind. She just wanted to take this opportunity to walk around and relax. Why did everyone bully her? Even the animals were laughing at her. She didn't want to live anymore. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su had already walked a distance and stopped. She turned around and saw Xiao and the others happily flapping their wings and Xiao soaring in the air. She couldn't help but smile. I've been busy all this time and haven't brought them out to play. I feel like I owe them. Little Annoyance and the others were brought back by her father. She felt that snow foxes were social animals and should be released back into the forest. Unfortunately, they kept biting her trouser leg and refused to leave. Kongling said that they had recognized her as their master. Looking at their watery eyes, she couldn't force them to leave, so she let them stay. Xiao didn't need to be said. At first, it wanted to escape, but in the end, it gave up on returning to the eagle flock. It refused to leave no matter what. She could only accept such a strong subordinate with tears in her eyes. She had originally thought that they were all impulsive and would stir up trouble in the residence, but she didn't expect them to be so patient and not cause any big trouble. They were all just small fights, which made her feel a lot more at ease. Because of everyone's company, life seemed to be fulfilling little by little, and she was no longer lonely. Her gaze moved away from Xiao and the others and landed on the person standing under the tree. Her tone was a little hesitant. Big Ice Cube, don't you think inside sleeve looks a little lonely? Xiao Su looked into the distance lazily. I think she's quite happy with herself. Big Ice Cube. Chu Qingyan glared at him. Xiao Su said coldly, what does other people have to do with me? Don't forget that you're here to accompany me today. Why did his voice sound a little sour? She sighed. Big Ice Cube, I can't forget my friends when I'm in love. Hearing this, Xiao Su's mood eased a lot. It's not impossible if you want to accompany her, but the last syllable made Chu Qingyan uneasy. But what? It depends on your performance. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her lips, hinting at something. Chu Qingyan felt that his gaze seemed to carry warmth, and everywhere it passed by became hot. In the end, Chu Qingyan covered her face and quickly ran back. Xiao Su licked the corner of his mouth, and then his gaze turned to inside sleeve under the tree. He raised his eyebrows slightly. If it wasn't for her appearance, he would be able to have a warm and fragrant jade in his arms today, and not just have a small taste of it. A good spring outing was ruined just like that. Just as Xiao Su was leisurely walking back, Turin rushed over on a horse. When he saw his master, he immediately jumped off the horse and rushed over. Master, something happened to Lord Lin. Turin said with a solemn expression. What happened? Xiao Su stood on the grass and looked at him with a frown. His gaze was cold and unwavering. In the past 2 days, Lord Lin has arrested all the officials and merchants involved in the official salt trade. However, the Lu family was not willing to give up. Before they were arrested, They resisted with their lives and injured many Yamen runners. Even Lord Lin was slightly injured. Turin described the scene at the time. Hearing that his good friend was only slightly injured, Xiao Su's tightly knitted brows relaxed. Have Hua Ling send some people to assist Feng Yi. Catch all the fish that escaped and bring them to justice. But don't reveal your identity. Turin received the order and quickly got on the horse and left. Xiao Su continued to walk forward. When he saw his little fellow's hand in sleeve flower, showing off to him, his eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of light. Sleeve flower and Feng Yi? The corner of his mouth slightly hooked up. Sleeve flower inexplicably felt the air become cold. When she looked at Xiao Su again, he still had that cold appearance. Could it be that the mask on his face made her feel malice? She didn't know that she was about to step into a trap. Chapter 845. When Xiao Su walked in front of the two, Hua Xiao didn't know why, but she felt an inexplicable discomfort coming from him. It was as if this person was plotting something against her. Chu Qingyan was the first to speak. She looked in the direction Turin had hurriedly left and couldn't help but be puzzled. Did Turin come to find you for something important? The little fellow's words were exactly what he wanted. He nodded, his expression a bit serious. Feng Yi was injured in the process of handling the case. What? How could that be? Then is official Lin's injury serious? Chu Qingyan was shocked. On the side, Hua Xiao's expression changed slightly, her lips turning pale. At this time, she couldn't help but stare at Xiao Su, afraid that he would say something bad. Hua Xiao's expression fell into Xiao Su's eyes. He raised his brows. You want to steal iron from this prince? You're still too inexperienced. Xiao Su's brows were tightly knitted, his expression worried. It's hard to say. What do you mean it's hard to say? Chu Qingyan still wanted to ask something, but Hua Xiao had already cut her off. She bit her lip and was very impatient, fiercely glaring at Xiao Su. If you want to know, then go and see for yourself. But whether he's dead or alive, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Xiao Su coldly looked at her. When these words fell, Hua Xiao was startled, as if Xiao Su had stepped on her little tail, but she forgot to jump up and refute. Chu Qingyan noticed that Hua Xiao's expression wasn't right. She couldn't help but reach out to tug at the sleeve of the person beside her. She glared at him, indicating that he shouldn't say anything else. Xiao Su clasped his hands behind his back, turning his back to the two people. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She didn't know what was wrong with him today, speaking so aggressively. Just as she was about to apologize to Hua Xiao, she saw that she seemed to have made a decision, then turned her head and said to her, Qingyan, I remember that there's still something I haven't done, so I'll go back first. You guys have fun. After saying that, she quickly walked to the side and led her horse away. She flipped onto the horse's back and quickly went back the way she came. Before he could say anything, the other party left in a hurry, as if his eyebrows were on fire. Chu Qingyan couldn't stop her, so she could only vent her anger on the people around her. What's wrong with you today? It's like you've eaten a firecracker. I don't think I've done anything to provoke you. As soon as she finished speaking, the person who was carrying her turned around and smirked, looking pleased with himself for having succeeded in his scheme. She took you for herself, which means she provoked me. Chu Qingyan glared at him. How much jealousy are you going to get in the future? I don't want to be in a vat of vinegar with you every day. Xiao Su pondered for a moment. After a while, he seemed to have found the answer. If no one except me can get close to you within 3 feet of you, then I think your worries won't be valid. It was really enough. But she didn't know why, but it sounded so sweet in her heart. She reluctantly regained her train of thought and looked worried. Do we need to go back? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Go back for what? Isn't official Lin injured? We should at least go and see him. Wait a minute. She looked at him suspiciously. Why don't you look worried at all when official Lin is injured? Are you hiding something from me? Xiao Su smiled, took her hand, and walked forward slowly. There was a light smile in his voice. He won't die for a while. How can you say that about your friend? I've already sent the person he wants to see the most. This is already the best consolation for him. Tisk, Big Ice Cube, you're so cunning. She finally understood and couldn't help but look at him with admiration. Do you still think that I bullied your friend? There was a hint of complaint in his calm tone. Chu Qingyan shook her head repeatedly. Big Ice Cube is the best. Then what's the reward? A certain person came over. Shameless. She pushed his face away, but she couldn't get rid of his hand. She could only let him hold her hand tightly. The sunlight shone on the two of them, plating them with a layer of golden pink halo. The light spots jumped on their sleeves, shoulders, hair, and cheeks. The two figures were elongated on the grass. Then they gradually got closer, closer, and closer. In the end, they seemed to merge together. A light breeze blew, and the grass fluttered. On the grass, the three little ones raised their claws to cover their eyes, and then secretly revealed the gap between their claws. Little Trouble looked into the distance, as if it saw something. It raised its head and howled happily. Little C circled in the air, and really wanted to roll its eyes. It was really taking advantage of its master all the time. But it couldn't help but raise its head and howl, feeling refreshed. 10 fingers interlocked, holding hands, I want to grow old with you. Compared to the warmth on the grass, Hua Xiao's side was burning with anxiety. She drove the horse to the city as fast as she could. Xiao Su's words just now still echoed in her ears. She shouldn't have left in such a hurry. She should have asked first. She was a little annoyed. She didn't know how Lin Fengyi was. Xiao Su's words were ambiguous, and it sounded very serious. When she thought of this, she swung her whip with all her might. She was anxious. This was the first time she felt that the road was so long that she lost her patience. She finally reached the Lin residence, but she and her horse were blocked at the door. Let me in. I have something to ask your master. Hua Xiao got off the horse and frowned as she looked at the two guards blocking her way. These two guards naturally knew Hua Xiao, but they definitely couldn't let her in. Young Master Hua, if you have something to say, you can visit another day. It's not convenient for my master today. Guard A persuaded. I must see him today. Hua Xiao said stubbornly. Guard B shook his head and said, Young Master Hua, even if we let you in, you won't be able to see my master. These words made Hua Xiao's heart skip a beat. Could it be that Lin Fengyi was seriously injured and couldn't see anyone? Is his injury very serious? Hua Xiao asked, her voice carrying a sobbing tone. A sour feeling filled her heart. She felt like her eyes were covered in fog and she couldn't see anything. Guard A and B looked at each other. How should they explain this to her? The way the two of them stammered made Hua Xiao's heart hang high in the air. She couldn't care about it anymore. She fiercely pushed the two of them away and charged into the residence. She wanted to see Lin Fengyi, she wanted to see Lin Fengyi. She wanted to personally see if he was dead or alive. Guard A and B never thought that this delicate girl would be so strong, instantly pushing them away. When they reacted, they wanted to go forward and grab Hua Xiao. The higher-ups had orders that no one could casually enter the residence during this time. At this time, Hualing walked out of the residence and saw this scene. After thinking for a bit, he raised his hand for the two guards to return to their original positions. Hua Xiao had already taken this chance to charge into the residence. Sir Hualing, this doesn't seem good. Guard A hesitantly said, I'll take responsibility if anything happens. Hualing waved his hand. After checking the guards, he slowly turned around and entered the residence. Chapter 846. With Hualing's instructions, Hua Xiaoxi unimpeded her way to Lin Fengyi's courtyard. Just as she arrived at the door, she saw a basin of blood being carried out. Her body swayed slightly and she almost lost her footing. Fortunately, she reached out to hold on to the door pillar and steadied herself. The Lin family's old steward was outside giving instructions to the servants. When he looked up and saw Hua Xiaoxi's pale face, he was puzzled as to how she came in. Hua Xiaoxi also saw him and quickly ran over. She grabbed the steward's sleeve and asked in a panic, Steward, Sir Lin, how is his injury? The old steward could hear the genuine concern in her voice and couldn't help but sigh heavily with a sad expression. This old servant also doesn't know. When Sir was sent back, his entire body was covered in blood. Right now, Miss Ching is looking after him. I hope that Bodhisattva will protect our Sir and ensure his safety. Hua Xiaoxi's mind went boom, and she forgot to react. She leaned against the pillar and barely supported her body. Her hands covered her face with a distressed expression. How could this be? Inside the room, Cheng Yanluo was currently bandaging Lin Fengyi's wound. She frowned and said, I seem to have heard a sound from Hua Xiaoxi. Lin Fengyi's internal energy was higher than Cheng Yanluo's, so he could clearly hear the sound outside. Although his face was pale, his spirit was still good. He smiled faintly. She's outside. And she sounded very worried about him. The little girl was right. There's something fishy going on between the two of you. Cheng Yanluo smiled and looked at him. She tied a knot on his arm and then stopped. She looked outside and said with a faint smile, Do you need my help? Lin Fengyi met her eyes. The two foxes were of the same species, so they immediately understood each other. Then I'll have to trouble Miss Cheng. Lin Fengyi smiled slyly. Cheng Yanluo rubbed her chin, but I want a reward. Moreover, it's something like betraying a friend, so the reward will be doubled. Miss Cheng, please speak your mind. Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. Cheng Yanluo instructed the servants in the room, then lowered her head and left with the medicine box. Because Lin Fengyi was receiving treatment, Hua Xiao didn't dare to rush in. However, the wait was fraught with anxiety. Especially when she saw basin after basin of blood being brought out, her heart sank and she became more and more panicked. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo walked out as if she had seen her savior. She took a step forward and grabbed her hand, asking anxiously, How is he? Cheng Yanluo couldn't bear to look at her. In the end, she said painfully, I've already given it my all, but it was already too late when I sent it here. It's just a momentary recovery of consciousness. So, Hua Xiao only felt the other's lips open and close, but she couldn't hear what she was saying. Cheng Yanluo placed a hand on the back of her sister's hand and shook her head with a sigh. Let's prepare for the funeral. Hua Xiao's legs went soft, and he almost collapsed. Cheng Yanluo reached out to support her, but she couldn't care less. She struggled to regain her balance and rushed into the room. Cheng Yanluo kept her head down, trying to stifle her laughter. She only dared to laugh out loud when he entered the room. Hua Xiao, oh Hua Xiao, I didn't expect you to have such a day. After she was done laughing, she looked back at the room and thought of Lin Fengyi, who was dressed like a clear and bright moon. She couldn't help but shake her head. Hua Xiao and the little girl had both fallen for such a clever and cunning person. However, the little girl was a wolf while she was a fox. She carried the medicine box and left leisurely, thinking about how much she should ask for when she returned. Today, Turin couldn't find Ethereal and called her over. She didn't expect that it was just a sword wound. She thought that she wouldn't be able to get a lot of treatment fees, but it turned out to be a fat sheep. She didn't know that not long after, the tables would turn on her. However, compared to Hua Xiao, who was scared but not in danger, she was the one who was truly heartbroken and overwhelmed with grief. As soon as Hua Xiao stepped into the room, she saw the pale-faced person lying on the bed. He was lying there straight as a ramrod, seemingly lifeless. She couldn't help but cover her mouth and whimper softly. A few days ago, he was still shamelessly hugging her, saying that he hadn't rested for a few days and wanted her to accompany him for a while. But now, he was lying there lifelessly. Her heart ached fiercely. She walked with her heavy legs and approached him step by step. Finally, she squatted down in front of his bed and reached out to touch his face. The person who closed his eyes slowly opened them. When he saw the person squatting in front of him, the corners of his mouth slowly lifted into a smile. You're here. Hearing this hoarse voice, Hua Xiao suddenly missed his voice in the past, although he always said some infuriating words. She wanted to respond to him, but tears fell before she could say anything. She could only nod. Silly girl, why are you crying? Surprise flashed across Lin Fengyi's eyes, followed by surprise. However, it was quickly covered by the pain in his eyes. Hua Xiao used her sleeve to wipe her face, but more tears fell. Finally, she looked at him in despair and said in a sad tone, "Lin Fengyi, why didn't you protect yourself?" He raised his hand strenuously and wiped her cheek with his fingertips. "There were too many of them. I couldn't hide." "You're a magistrate. Why didn't you let someone else do it? Why did you follow them?" She cried. Seeing that she was genuinely sad, he patiently explained, "I didn't know that they would act out of desperation. Moreover, as the leader, I should have taken the lead." She cried even harder. "So you threw your life away there? How can you be like this? Aren't you afraid of making your family worry? My parents died when I was young. I have no family by my side and no one to worry about." He chuckled softly as if he was mocking himself. Hua Xiao couldn't bear to hear him say this. She reached out to hold his hand, tears blurring her eyes. "What are you saying? Don't you have friends, housekeeper, and me? I remember that you hate me, so you don't have to comfort me." Lin Fengyi sighed and added, "I'm already very happy that you can come to see me for the last time." She shook her head. "Although you have a bad temper and a lot of logic, I don't hate you. I lied when I said that I don't want to see you and that I hate you. Lin Fengyi, don't die, okay? Don't die, okay?" She was sobbing uncontrollably, her grief like a river. Lin Fengyi didn't expect that his injury would bring him such a pleasant surprise. He suppressed the joy in his heart, but his face was still sad. "Even if you're comforting me, I'm still very happy." Hua Xiao shook her head. "I'm not comforting you. You can't leave me alone. You can't abandon me when I've fallen for you. How can you be so cruel? Lin Fengyi, you can't die. Silly girl, is what you said true? You said that you like me?" His voice of surprise was no longer as weak and pale as before. Hua Xiao subconsciously wanted to nod, but then she realized that something was wrong. She looked up. Her eyes were even brighter after the tears washed away, but at this moment, she saw a handsome face with a radiant glow. Chapter 847. Hua Xiao blinked. Although the person in front of her looked pale, he seemed to be in good spirits. Is this the final radiance of the setting sun? Lin Fengyi did not hear her reply. His eyes flashed and he covered his chest with his hand, pretending to cough. She threw her doubts to the back of her mind when she saw his expression change slightly. She hurriedly supported him and said anxiously, "You're injured. Don't speak first." Lin Fengyi obeyed her words and closed his eyes to ease his pain. Hua Xiao could not help but cry again. Lin Fengyi listened to her sorrowful voice and his brows moved. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at her emotionally. "Silly girl, you said that you like me just now. Is it true? You didn't lie to me because I'm dying, right?" His eyes were filled with little bits of light, as if he was using all his strength to seek an answer. It was as if the light would dissipate once he got the answer. She bit her lip and looked at him. "No, wait." Her gaze landed on his arm, then his chest, then back to his face. She seemed to have discovered something. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly. She steadied her emotions. "Are you seriously injured?" Lin Fengyi closed his eyes slightly. "Just like what you saw." "Then where are you injured?" She suppressed her anger in her tone. At this moment, Lin Fengyi realized that something was wrong. After a moment of silence, he replied faintly, "My hand." "Silly girl, you've discovered it." Hua Xiao narrowed her eyes and raised her hand to poke his bandaged arm. She said sinisterly, "Do I need to prepare for your funeral?" Pain appeared on his face because of her poke, but he did not make a sound. He knew that he could not hide it anymore. He said calmly, "No need." The smile on Hua Xiao's face disappeared. She stood up abruptly, turned around, and walked out without a word. She had just taken a step when someone grabbed her wrist. "Is it fun to play with me? Is it fun to make people worry? I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Lin Fengyi, I was wrong about you." Hua Xiao abruptly flung his hand away, interrupting his words. The anger that he had been suppressing just now all exploded out. "In my sleeve. I didn't mean that." Lin Fengyi knew that the situation was not going to be easy. He propped himself up and looked at her sincerely. But how could the anger of being deceived be quelled so easily? Xiao angrily pointed at him. Seeing me cry for you, does it satisfy your sense of revenge? I must have been a fool to feel sad for a heartless, hypocritical villain like you. I don't want to see you again. After saying that, she turned around and left. However, her arm was grabbed again. Xiao didn't even think about it before forcefully pushing her away. Just as she was about to walk forward, she heard a cry of pain behind her. She stopped in her tracks. His hand was injured. She didn't know if she had touched his wound just now. At this moment, the muffled voice of the person behind her made her even more unable to take a step forward. Behind her came the sound of footsteps getting off the bed, and then a pair of strong arms wrapped around her waist and hugged her from behind. In my sleeve. I didn't mean to lie to you. You didn't mean to. You did it on purpose. Let go of me. He chuckled. If you can bear to see my wound open, you can struggle as much as you want. Rascal. Even so, she didn't dare to struggle too hard, afraid that she would touch his wound again. In my sleeve, I haven't seen you for a while. I miss you very much. He rested his chin on the top of her head. His expression was gentle, and even his tone made the spring breeze soften. This sentence made her anger dissipate by more than half, but she stubbornly said, You want to use flowery words to make me forget your deception just now? That's impossible. I remember it all. The reason why I lied to you is because I want to know if I'm important in your heart. Is this question very important? So important that you use tricks to deceive me? She said those words fiercely, but the anger in her heart had already dissipated because of his words. However, when she thought about what happened just now, she felt very awkward. How can it not be important? He was a meticulous person. How could he not feel that her temper had softened? He let go of her hand and turned her body to face him. The person who was usually arrogant actually only reached his shoulders. He had to lower his head to look at her bright eyes. Then I also want to know your answer to this question. When he lowered his eyes, those cold eyes reflected her face. She suddenly mustered up her courage and looked directly into his eyes. Although they were both women, Xiao was more open-minded than Chu Qingyan and more decisive than Qingyan Luo. Otherwise, she wouldn't have waited for his response after the night they spent together. So at this moment, she didn't mince her words. Her gaze was calm, and it went straight to the depths of his heart. In her eyes, love was love. There was nothing to be ashamed of. Your answer is my answer. He was surprised by her words, but soon his expression softened, and there was a hint of certainty in his tone. Xiao pursed her lips. This guy. It must be because he had designed her true reaction just now. That was why he was so sure. He usually looked so good, but in fact he was bad to the core. Wait a minute. Only then did she realize what was going on and looked at him in confusion. What's wrong? Lin Fengyi reached out and caressed her face. His expression was gentle. Xiao suddenly smiled slyly. If I say that I don't care about you at all, will your answer be the same as mine? His fingers paused, then slid to her chin. He leaned forward and bit her lips. Little rascal, is it so difficult to admit your feelings? I'm returning those words to you, Lin Fengyi. Is it so difficult to admit your feelings? Xiao was hurt, but she still retorted. Lin Fengyi touched her lips with his fingertips and chuckled. What's there to be afraid of? Xiao, you're destined to be my only wife in this life. His only wife in this life. Xiao's eyes lit up. She felt an inexplicable bitterness and happiness. You're so confident? She smiled. Haven't you been mine since a long time ago? He pointed out. Xiao's face turned red. Shameless. But she seemed to have thought of something, and her expression suddenly changed. She looked at the person in front of her with an unfathomable expression. Lin Fengyi, let me ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. Although he really wanted to pull her into his embrace and taste her red lips right now, he didn't reject this feeling after not seeing her for a few days. But when he heard the words of the person in front of him and was shocked by her tone, he gently nodded and temporarily suppressed this evil thought. You treat me differently because of that night? Chapter 848. Why do you ask? Lin Fengyi frowned. Hua Xiao looked at him in the eye and said word by word. I remember that before this, whenever we met, we would either be at each other's throats or dislike each other. We had never been harmonious. However, after that night, I felt that your attitude towards me had changed. Is it because you feel guilty towards me and that you have taken away a woman's most precious thing? Do you feel that you owe me something? Is that why you want to make it up to me? Are you willing to make a lifelong promise? Her tone was serious. Although Hua Xiao was sometimes unreliable, that was only in front of her close friends and family. In the eyes of outsiders, she had the cunning and slyness of a businessman. Everything she did was based on profits. Moreover, she had been following her father on the road of business since she was a child. She had been influenced by what she saw and heard, and she was more observant than her peers. She was more mature and steady than her peers. She had seen magnificent places, seen heartless men and heartless women, seen deceit and gratitude. Most of the time, she felt that there were few pure feelings between people. Everything was done with a certain purpose. Perhaps it was because she had been immersed in the business world for many years. Even though her heart was stirred by his words, her mind was still half sober. It was not that she did not believe in his feelings, but her father had once said that no matter what she did, it was a gamble, especially the relationship between a man and a woman. Because there was only one bet. If she lost, she would lose her entire life. Since that was the case, why not be generous and open up all her secrets, take out her heart, and gamble once? She rarely had strong possessiveness because she was Hua Xiao, the young master of Jiangnan's lifeline. She had wealth that others did not have. As long as it was not the stars in the sky or the moon in the bottom of the sea, there was nothing that she could not get. However, she was not willing to compromise. At this moment, her heart clearly told herself that the person in front of her was the man she liked. As long as she nodded, he would treat her well for the rest of her life. Because he was Lin Fengyi, once he made a promise, he would fulfill it without any hesitation. When discussing business, every clause was accompanied by benefits. This was something she knew since she was young. However, this was the first time she had thought of this. She wanted to know if the person in front of her had sincere feelings for her. No debt, no guilt, no compensation. For the first time, she wanted pure feelings. As for this, what kind of response would he give her? Her heart was tossed high into the air, unable to fall back to the ground before she got an answer from him. This was also the difference between her and Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo. She had always known clearly what she wanted. If she liked something, she would fight for it without any regrets. Are you doubting my feelings for you? Lin Fengyi heard a serious inquiry in her words. It was as if she was knocking on his heart, stubbornly wanting the truest answer. Don't change the topic. Just answer my question honestly. She pushed his fingers away from her sleeve and took a step back. Only when she could no longer smell the disturbing breath on his body did she raise her head to look at him. This was the best distance for negotiation. She had to stay awake and not be confused by his beauty so that she could make the best decision. Lin Fengyi looked at the domineering person in front of him with her arms crossed and her chin raised at him. He couldn't help but want to laugh, but he held it in because he knew that once she found out, this conversation would be over and she would leave without mercy. He was silent for a while before he slowly said, "About what you said just now, it should be your own misconception." What do you mean? Hua Xiaoli frowned and looked at him. Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. You're the one who's going against me. You're the one who doesn't like me. I've never taken the initiative to provoke you. Hua Xiaoli was stunned. She recalled their interactions in the past, and it seemed that he was right. At this moment, the person in front of her had already approached her. That bamboo scent once again lingered around her body. Before she could react, she heard him say with a flirtatious smile, "You remember now? Which time didn't you take the initiative to provoke me?" You're the one who's in the wrong." His tone was full of resentment, but then it became lively again. He rubbed his chin and looked at her suspiciously. Could it be that you've already taken a liking to this Darren from the start? So it's just like the saying, hitting is flirting and scolding is love? Listening to his shameless guesses, Hua Xiuli wondered if her previous impression of him was just an illusion. You're talking nonsense. As soon as she said that, she fell into a warm embrace filled with bamboo fragrance. I'm talking nonsense. Don't be angry. Words that deserved a beating followed. Hua Xiuli was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She was being teased again. If it weren't for the fact that you're injured, I would have beaten you to the ground long ago, she said ruthlessly without any deterrence. Lin Fengyi smiled and caressed her back. Many thanks to young Master Hua for showing mercy. Humph. A moment later. Xiuli. Hearing him suddenly call her name in a tone that wasn't as frivolous as before, her pupils shrank and she responded in a low voice. My feelings for you, although it doesn't have much to do with that night, the idea of being with you for the rest of my life started from that night. As expected, Hua Xiuli felt a bit cold, even though it was almost summer. He saw the defeat in her eyes. Did this silly girl think that he was feeling guilty again? He paused and then said in a gentle tone, because I had already unknowingly fallen in love with you. It was only that night that I confirmed my feelings for you. Oh heavens, this cold-faced Darren didn't say words of love, but once he did, it made people unable to resist. Hua Xiuli was already petrified. One moment in hell, the next moment in heaven. This was the feeling she had right now. My care for you, my intention of being with you for the rest of my life, is not because I owe you, feel guilty, or want to make up for anything. It was just a man's love for a woman that he was willing to love. He reached out and caressed the tears at the corner of her eyes, and his heart softened. Silly girl, why are you crying? I'm a little scared. Father said that true love has to go through a lot of twists and turns before it can come to fruition. Compared to Qingyan and Yen Luo, aren't things going too smoothly for us? She felt as if she had picked up a treasure. Her silly look pleased him. He tightened his arms and cherished her in his arms as he spoke softly and gently. If you're afraid that I won't know how to cherish you if you're too easy to get, then you're wrong. Hua Xiuli raised her head from his arms, her eyes hazy with tears. It turned out that he knew what she was worried about. She was afraid that her love for him and their night together would make him unscrupulous and belittle her feelings. Because if it's too easy to get, you're even more afraid of losing it. In the hazy fog, he leaned over, his eyes full of love and tenderness for her. Hua Xiuli couldn't help but close her eyes and bear his gentleness. Chapter 849. After the knot in her heart was untied, Hua Xiuli began to settle the score. Although I've accepted your kindness, I won't forgive you so easily for the psychological damage your deceit has caused me. She broke free from his embrace and ordered him to lie back on the bed. Then she crossed her arms and snorted coldly. Lin Fengyi leaned against the bed and looked at her calmly. Then I'll compensate you. Hua Xiuli was going crazy. Your hand is injured, not your brain. He actually said such a thing. Could it be that his brain was damaged? All right, in other words, do you still remember what I said outside the walls of the Chu estate that day? He looked at her with bright eyes. Hua Xiuli blinked and was a little confused. However, a corner of her memory opened up and brought her back to that evening, that setting sun, and a certain someone's shameless words. You want me to take responsibility? You really hit your head. Hua Xiuli stomped her feet. He was a big man. How could he have the nerve to ask a girl to take responsibility? Lin Fengyi glanced at her. Why not? You're rich and have countless businesses under your name. Are you so stingy that you're unwilling to take responsibility for my innocence that you took advantage of? You're also the magistrate of Jiangnan. The mountain is high and the emperor is far away. You have the nerve to bully a little girl and not take responsibility? Hua Xiuli couldn't help but be thick-skinned as she spoke to him. She felt that she couldn't be too thick-skinned when talking to people. Fortunately, she often ran around outside, so her skin was much thicker. That's not the same. Your wealth is in your hands and you're steady. Unlike us as officials, it's our duty to do well. If we don't do well, it's a dereliction of duty. No one knows when their power will be taken back, so you have to take responsibility for me. Seeing that a certain someone didn't feel embarrassed at all, Hua Xiaoli felt that she seemed to have met a sly fox that she couldn't get rid of. In terms of skin, she wasn't as thick-skinned as him. She couldn't win against him in an argument. She didn't want to talk to him about this, otherwise, she would fall into his trap again. You only injured your arm. Why was there so much blood just now? She looked at his arm again and asked seriously. It was stained with the other party's blood. Lin Fengyi knew that she was uncomfortable and didn't tease her anymore. It sounded like the fight was really dangerous. She moved a chair over and sat in front of him. Concerned and hesitant, she asked, "Does it still hurt?" At this moment, because he had lost a lot of blood, his face was pale and he no longer had his usual healthy complexion. Her heart ached for him. He had said so much to her just now, pulling and hugging her, and he had long used up all his energy. Fatigue appeared on his face, but he forced himself to be alert and shook his head to comfort her. It's okay. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Even so, Hua Xiaoli still looked at him worriedly. Lin Fengyi smiled and reached out to hold her fingers. Sleep with me for a while. Hua Xiaoli was just about to nod when she suddenly thought of something. She felt that the fingers holding her were abnormally hot. She immediately wanted to shake them off. You're already injured. What are you thinking about? Lin Fengyi didn't understand. When he saw her blushing and glaring at him, he realized that the silly girl had misunderstood. What are you thinking? He shook his head. If I really wanted to do something to you, do you think you could escape? His fingers held her hand tightly. He felt that his strength was almost exhausted. Before he closed his eyes, he reminded her, "Don't sneak away before I wake up." Hua Xiaoli moved her hand, and the hand that was wrapped around his fingers gripped her even more tightly. She looked at his sleeping face and couldn't help but sigh deeply. She had rushed all the way here just now, so she didn't feel anything because of her fear. Now that she was relaxed, she was also a little exhausted. She didn't want him to sleep soundly, so she moved the chair closer and leaned against his bedpost. She closed her eyes and rested quietly. Perhaps the room was too quiet, so she unknowingly fell asleep. After spending a day in their world without anyone to disturb them, Xiao Su brought Chu Qingyan back slowly. Big ice cube, I feel like the sunset is infinitely beautiful. It's just that dusk is approaching. She turned back to look at the setting sun hanging halfway up the mountain and sighed. As soon as she finished speaking, her nose was gently scratched by someone. She returned to her senses and looked at him. Seize the moment, don't waste your time, and have a clear conscience. Didn't you say that yourself? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and said. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. As the saying goes, those who are closely involved can't see clearly. When you talk about others, you always have a lot of reasons, but when it comes to yourself, it's always ineffective. Isn't that always the case? Xiao Su smiled faintly. Let's go home. She looked up at him and smiled. Her teeth were bright, and her dimples were sweet. When the mountain flowers are blooming, you're smiling in the bushes. Snowfox, or translation, Master's smile is so beautiful. Gerfalcons, whoosh whoosh. Translation, it's useless. They're all stunned. Stupid humans. By the time they got home, Mr. and Mrs. Chu were already in Xiao Su's courtyard. Father, Mother, why are you here? Chu Qingyan asked curiously. She washed her hands in the basin that Xining had brought over. Then she walked over to them and asked curiously. If there was nothing going on, her parents would not leave their courtyard. That was why Chu Qingyan had asked such a question. Mrs. Chu looked at her daughter with a smile. His Highness said that he plans to hold your marriage after you become of marriageable age. Today, your father and I are here to discuss the details. Why didn't anyone tell her? Xiao Su saw through her thoughts and raised his eyebrows. If we had told you in advance, would you still have come out today? Chu Qingyan thought about it and agreed. If she had known that there would be such a thing waiting for her when she came back, She might not have been in the mood to play. The dishes were already on the table. The family of four sat down and discussed the marriage as they ate. Actually, the main speakers were Xiao Su and Mrs. Chu. She was in charge of eating, while her father was in charge of coming up with some weird ideas. Yang Xiaohuan, Turan, Hua Ling and Jin Ling, who were standing at the side, were in charge of taking notes. But there were so many people present. Talking about business, strategy, military strategy, and killing people was not a problem. But when it came to marriage, no one knew how to buy things. Apart from Mr. and Mrs. Chu, who were experienced people, it was fine as long as Mr. Chu didn't add to the trouble. So it was mainly Xiao Su who was asking Mrs. Chu. Chu Qingyan looked at her mother, who was humbly asking for advice, and her face couldn't help but burn. Yang Xiaohuan, Jin Ling, and the others' teasing gazes made her want to bury her face in the bowl of rice. This was a major event in her life, but she had an illusion that she didn't need to worry about anything else as long as she waited to get married. Marriage was a matter between two people, but all the procedures were extremely complicated. As she listened, she felt a headache coming on. She turned to look at the person beside her, only to see that he still had a serious expression on his face as he listened attentively. From time to time, he would ask one or two questions. It was rare that Big Ice could still stay sober. She only knew that after her birthday, everyone would return to Lian City to prepare for the wedding. They had lived in Lian City for 5 years, so they should get married there and have a wedding banquet. At this moment, 2 handsome horses galloped into Jiangnan from afar. When they reached the last mountain, the leader climbed up the peak and looked at Jiangnan City from afar. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. "Little girl, I'm back. Did you miss me?" Chapter 850. Qingyan, Chu Qingyan, Hua Xiao tried to call out to the girl who was in a trance, but she didn't respond. In the end, she couldn't help but shout at the top of her lungs. Before Chu Qingyan could come back to her senses, Cheng Yenluo had already been startled by her earth-shattering roar. She patted her chest and said to Hua Xiao, "Your soul-summoning spell is useless on this girl. She's about to get married, and her soul has already flown off to God knows where." Hua Xiao looked at Chu Qingyan, only to see that Chu Qingyan had merely dug her ears in response to Hua Xiao Yi's roar. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Hua Xiao Yi with a confused expression. Hua Xiao Yi still had the nerve to ask, "What happened, Xiao Yi?" Cheng Yenluo was about to go crazy. "I've already told you 10 times, no, 11 times about the promotion. You still have the nerve to be distracted and ask me what happened? Oh my God, I want to take a leave. I want to rest. I want to stay away from this demon." Chu Qingyan smiled and patted her shoulder. Her smile was very innocent. "You came back this morning with a happy face. I've told you more than 20 times about the promotion plan. So, don't be the pot calling the kettle black." Chu Qingyan finally revealed her evil little fangs. "So now you still want to take a leave, rest, and stay away from such an adorable angel like me?" Hua Xiao immediately shook her head. This was karma. Cheng Yenluo looked at the 2 energetic girls and couldn't help but sigh softly. "It's so good to be young. Yenluo is still young and as beautiful as a flower." Hua Xiao turned her head and said with a smile, "Yeah, sighing will take away your happiness." Chu Qingyan put her hand on Hua Xiao's shoulder and winked at Yenluo. "You're indeed people who are nourished by love. Even from so far away, I can see that you're bubbling with happiness." These words of comfort had no effect on her. Hua Xiao stomped her feet. "What are you talking about? I can't wait to chop that guy into pieces." Chu Qingyan nodded. "Exactly. Wait a minute." Hua Xiao snapped out of her daze and looked at Cheng Yenluo sternly. She clenched her fists and cracked them loudly. "I suddenly remembered that you had a part to play in yesterday's incident. What else do you have to say for yourself?" Cheng Yenluo thought that this man had already forgotten all about her because he was immersed in the sweetness of love. She didn't expect him to want to settle the score with her now. She looked at the man who was slowly approaching her with a murderous look on his face and said calmly, "I feel that I'm innocent in this matter. Lord Lin said that if I didn't cooperate with him, he would make sure that I couldn't open my clinic in Jiangnan. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would betray my friends? Civilians don't fight with officials. It's all in my sleeves. Baby's heart is bitter, but baby won't say it. Hearing this, Hua Xiao said angrily, Lin Fengyi is too much. He actually abused his power to threaten you. The next time we meet, I will definitely avenge you. Cheng Yanluo snickered inwardly, but she maintained an aggrieved expression on her face. All right. Chu Qingyan shook her head as she watched from the side. Hua Xiao was still too inexperienced in front of Yanluo. At this moment, Xining walked in and said to Cheng Yanluo with a smile, Miss Cheng, Lord Ethereal is here. Hua Xiao and Chu Qingyan exchanged glances. Someone was here to deliver love medicine soup again. I won't see him. Just say that I'm not here. Cheng Yanluo saw her friend's gaze and made up her mind. She waved her hand and said, Xining didn't leave immediately. Instead, she continued, Lord Ethereal said that if you say that you're not here, he'll come in after a cup of tea's time. Ethereal has improved a lot recently. Chu Qingyan didn't give face to her friend and burst into laughter. That's right. Weren't you just talking about us? Didn't you enjoy it too? Besides, you're much luckier than us. Qingyan's husband is as cold as ice, and Lin Fengyi is recuperating in bed. Even if he's perfectly fine, he wouldn't do something like delivering soup to the shop. We should be the ones envying him. Yanluo, you should be content. It was rare for Hua Xiao to say such a meaningful sentence. Cheng Yanluo flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't make sarcastic remarks. I don't care about your medicine soup. You've been suffering from allergies for the past 2 days. You'd better listen to the doctor. After all, doctors don't treat themselves. It's rare for the doctor to come in person. He's so considerate. Don't be stubborn. Hua Xiao winked at her. He's not as good as you make him out to be. In terms of medical skills, very few people can compare to him. In terms of character, he is pure and honest. In terms of looks, he is top-notch. You should take him in, lest he harms others. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile as she tried to persuade him. All right, we're going to admire the flowers. You stay here. Your face is so swollen. You'd better drink the medicine soup obediently. Let's go. Hua Xiao held Chu Qingyan's hand and waved at her happily. Cheng Yanluo was annoyed. She was about to leave when she bumped into someone. Xiao Yan, where are you going? Enemies were bound to meet. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiao left the shop from the back door. The carriage was already waiting outside. They got on and Xining, Jin Exen and Fu followed them. I heard that you and Lord Lin have a happy ending? The carriage drove toward the peach blossom forest outside the city. Chu Qingyan was lying lazily on the couch. This was the first time she had asked her that question. I guess so. Hua Xiao's face flushed red like the peach blossoms in March. It was very lovable. Chu Qingyan smiled gently. Who would have thought that the two of you who were at loggerheads the moment you met would end up together? Congratulations. Hua Xiao touched her nose. It's just like how everyone is curious. Your husband is as cold as ice and you're as gentle as water. How did two extremes end up together? Just like how one knows when to drink water. Chu Qingyan smiled. Hua Xiao nodded. No one can say for sure when fate comes. Let nature take its course. The two of them had just arrived at the peach blossom forest and alighted from the carriage when a figure hurried over. Young Master Hua, Lord Lin is looking for you. Lin Fengyi's personal guard, Li Hu, cupped his hands. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. As expected, he can't be apart from you for even a moment. Hua Xiao's face was sullen. I've never felt that he was so clingy. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and thought for a while. Then, she said, maybe it's only for special people that he would reveal his hidden side. All right, you can go. You're the most injured. What about you? Hua Xiao felt that if she left, it would be a little unkind. I'll allow you to forget your friends for once. Chu Qingyan blinked. All right. Hua Xiao looked back 3 times with each step. In the end, she left with Ah Fu and Li Hu. After watching Hua Xiao leave, she finally turned around and walked towards the peach blossom forest. This was the last peach blossom at the end of spring. Because summer was approaching, there were only a few flowers left on the branches. Going out today, admiring the flowers was secondary. She mainly wanted to walk around and relax her body and mind. Jean Xen and Xining followed behind her, blindly following her. They strolled aimlessly. However, from the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a tall figure in dark purple. He had a lazy and devilish smile, and then she heard a familiar voice. "Long time no see, little girl." Her gaze froze, surprised and happy. "On a spring outing, apricot blossoms blow all over my head. Which family is young and romantic?" Chapter 851. In the depths of the peach blossom forest, a tall figure appeared against the light. The wind blew, and the flowers on the branches were blown down, falling along with the long black hair. The sunlight shone through the gaps between the dense foliage, and the light was vertical and slanted. That person was like a god of freedom, descending from the horizon at dawn. Blessed by the heavens, he had the most holy, mysterious, and devilish temperament. The verdant leaves were behind him, above him, to his left and right. They were so close yet so far. Even the petals couldn't get close to him. They could only touch his shoulders and sleeves, and then submit to his feet. "Are you dazed?" Hua Li's voice was still filled with that familiar, annoying smirk. Chu Qingyan looked at the finger waving in front of her eyes, and couldn't help but take a step back. She frowned and stared at the devilish face in front of her. "You can scare people to death, don't you know? Every time you suddenly appear, I don't know what kind of habit it is." Higashio Motetsu sneered. If it wasn't for the element of surprise, how could it leave such a deep impression? Chu Qingyan didn't want to respond to his words. She walked forward, and Higashio Motetsu followed beside her, strolling leisurely. "Why were you gone for so long? Was the matter very troublesome?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. Back then, he had only left a sentence saying that he had to go back to deal with the sex matters, and then there was no news from him for a few months. Thinking about it, she wondered if he didn't take her seriously as a friend. Higashio Motetsu looked at her strangely. "I thought you didn't care about me at all." Chu Qingyan heard the disbelief in his voice, and couldn't help but reflect. Did she really ignore him? Jean Xen saw that it was Higashio Motetsu, and put down the hand that was holding the hilt of his sword. He was shocked. He hadn't seen him for a few months, and the person in front of him seemed to have improved quite a bit. When he appeared just now, he didn't even notice. He pursed his lips. It seemed that he had to increase the amount of training again. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. "Don't talk nonsense. You sent someone to send me a message saying that you would be back after some time. You've been gone for so long. You're the one who doesn't treat me as a friend." Higashio Motetsu broke off a peach blossom branch and casually swung it. "Things happen so suddenly. I can't possibly rush into your place just to say goodbye to you, only to be kicked out by the King of England. I can't do such a shameful thing." He shrugged. Chu Qingyan was speechless. "He's not that petty." Higashio Motetsu chuckled. "He was probably not just stingy." Chu Qingyan waved her hand to let Xining and Jean Xen do whatever they wanted, while she and Higashio Motetsu slowly walked into the depths of the forest. What was a true friend? When they were silent, they didn't feel awkward. After not seeing each other for a long time, they still felt familiar. At this time, Dong Ting gave her such a feeling. "You've done well in the continuation of the product. Congratulations. But as soon as I came back, I heard that you were going to shift your focus to other fields. I didn't know that you were so ambitious." Higashio Motetsu stood under a lush peach tree and turned around to ask. Naturally, he looked back with a charming gaze, and all kinds of flirtatious expressions lingered around his eyebrows. Chu Qingyan felt that this person was really becoming more and more enchanting. She withdrew her stunned emotions and stepped forward to his side, admiring the wonderful scenery with him. "You also played a part in the continuation of the product. I should say that you're happy too. As for other fields," she looked up and smiled mischievously. "No one will complain about having too much money. Of course, we'll earn as much as we can. Just like people who practice martial arts, They pursue the supreme realm. They're always chasing after a higher level, aren't they? I haven't seen you for a long time, and you've become more eloquent. Higashio Motetsu said with a faint smile, and it was hard to tell whether he was praising or criticizing her. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. People are always improving. No one will regress. You don't look like a greedy person. Higashio Motetsu's tone was certain. Chu Qingyan blinked. Indeed, I look like a good person. I don't look like a businessman who stinks of money. I look like a distinguished and elegant gentleman. Don't flatter yourself. Higashio Motetsu sneered. His fingers stroked the branches, and the tender leaves on the branches softly pressed against his fingertips. He said casually, I don't believe that there's no reason for every extraordinary thing you do. Since you know, why are you still asking? She spread her hands again. Some people pretend to understand when they're confused, while others pretend to be confused. You're so smart, so, Higashio Motetsu chuckled. There's no need to guess. If it's not for yourself, then it can only be for one person. I'm so smart. Forget it, it's fine as long as I know it in my heart. Chu Qingyan smiled and patted him hard on the shoulder. She said like a good brother, I like to talk to smart people. Higashio Motetsu pursed his lips. How have you been recently? Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and turned to ask him. So, how about you? He asked. Chu Qingyan smiled. I'm all right. There's nothing to worry about at the moment. Is that so? Why did I hear that someone ran away from home last time and caused a lot of trouble? He looked at her with a smile, hinting at something. She couldn't help but touch her nose, feeling a little guilty. How did you know about this? How embarrassing. So it's true. You little girl, you've grown up. Tesuke, you're just here to make fun of me. Go away. Chu Qingyan glared at him and walked away. Higashio Motetsu looked at her back and his eyes darkened. When he received the news, he was in Capital City and had also received Empress Liang's assassination order. He sent people to stop her, but they were too late. In the end, the person who saved her was still Xiao Su. A gust of cold wind blew past, dispersing the darkness in his eyes. The sparkling light in his eyes dissipated, and they regained their former clarity. He walked up and heard her voice. Dong, let me tell you something, she said with her back facing him. What? He asked as he walked. Half a month later, it will be my birthday. She put her hands behind her back and intertwined her fingers one by one. Can I guess that you're reminding me to prepare a birthday gift for you? Higashio Motetsu looked up and smiled brightly in the sunlight. As he spoke, he began to think about it. This time, he had obtained something good in the capital. The little girl should like it if she saw it. I'm not that thick-skinned. Actually, after my birthday, I want to go back to Lien City. She continued. Then go back. He frowned slightly, feeling that there was something wrong with her tone. In her joy, there was a trace of shyness. I want to go back to Lien City to be a bride. Kacha. His footsteps suddenly stopped and the branch he was playing with snapped in the middle because he used too much force. He suddenly forgot to move forward as he listened to the person who was 3 steps away from him ramble on and on. I'm of marriageable age. Big Ice Cube said that we can get married. Because we've been in Lien City for 5 years, it's like a second home outside of the King of England's residence. So Mother said that I can get married from there. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. Chapter 852. Chu Qingyan, who was immersed in her own happiness, didn't notice that something was amiss behind her. She waited for a while but didn't hear his reply. Just as she was about to turn around, she heard a faint, emotionless voice. So, you're planning to invite me so that I can prepare the money in advance? Chu Qingyan stretched lazily against the sun and looked back with a smile. I'm returning the favor. When you get married in the future, you can send me an invitation. I'll definitely attend to all the etiquette. The sunlight danced between her eyebrows, and a transparent, warm halo enveloped her body. He was so close yet so far, and his eyesight was excellent, so he could clearly see the fluffy hair on her face. She was so adorable. He shook his mind and lowered his eyes slightly. Aren't you only 15 years old? You don't want to enjoy the good times, and you're willing to be a resentful woman in the boudoir? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. You're such an old-fashioned person. He won't interfere with my affairs. As long as I like it, he will let me do it. The continuation of the product is the best proof. Hearing her speak up for Xiao Su, his mood to tease her faded a lot. Chu Qingyan then continued, speaking of which, you're also in your 20s. Don't you have a girl you like? She paused and looked at him with disdain. That's not right. With your looks, it's hard to find a girl who's more outstanding than you. A normal girl would be ashamed to death standing next to you. A beauty's heart is not as good as her appearance, he said softly. Chu Qingyan pondered over his words. Did he mean that a person didn't need to be too beautiful? It was enough to have a kind heart? Dong Ting, when did you become enlightened? Do you need me to help you keep an eye out for the resources around you and introduce a few to you? Chu Qingyan grinned at him, looking like a child who could be taught. It wasn't because the sunlight was too bright, but because her smile was too dazzling. He couldn't help but avert his eyes. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he said with a strange smile, I'm not as desperate to get married as you are. A man's ambition is to travel the world. The only way to start a family is to start a career first. Chu Qingyan lowered her eyebrows and thought for a moment. Then she smiled and said, That's true. As the young master of the Moon Palace, you'll inherit your father's position sooner or later. Normal girls won't catch your eye, so I won't worry for you. Hearing her words, the smile in Dongting Wangyu's eyes grew fainter. He walked a few steps, leaned against the thick trunk of the peach tree, and asked casually, You've already decided on Xiao Su and won't change your mind? He didn't know why, but his heart felt inexplicably uncomfortable, and it was even worse when she said that she wanted to get married. Chu Qingyan took a few steps to the side and hid under the shade of a tree. She had been under the sun for a long time, and it was still a little hot. She looked at him suspiciously and said, Why are you so long-winded? Are you possessed by your mother? You're so mysterious. Of course I've thought it through. Higashio Motetsu rolled his eyes at her. I'm still your family. Don't bite me like a dog. You don't know how to appreciate people's kindness. Chu Qingyan quickly apologized with a smile. All right. I've wronged you. Who told you to be so strange just now? It was like you didn't agree. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. Higashio Motetsu was stunned. Did he? While he was still in a daze, Chu Qingyan's clear voice entered his ears. We met when we were 10 and accompanied each other for 5 years. Since we're destined to spend the rest of our lives together, what difference does it make if it's a step earlier or later? He opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but Jin Xin and Xining had already walked over. Master, Hualing came over just now. His Highness is looking for you. Jin Xin nodded to Higashio Motetsu before turning to speak to his master. As soon as his voice fell, before Chu Qingyan could answer, someone else spoke first. What? He doesn't even give you this bit of freedom. He's just meeting up with a friend. Chu Qingyan found it funny. Maybe it's something urgent. Don't think too much. Yo, you're already speaking up for him before you're even married. If you're married, wouldn't it be hard for me to even see you? Little girl, I've been your friend for many years. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Can't you even talk to me? Higashio Motetsu gave a cold snort. He was clearly in the wrong. Chu Qingyan tilted her head, looking a little embarrassed. How about I hold a welcoming dinner for you tomorrow? Seeing her frown slightly, he sighed in his heart and waved his hand at her. Go. Even if I force you to stay, your heart is elsewhere. It's not fun at all. Chu Qingyan smiled at him apologetically. Don't say that. If you have time, go to the store and play with Xioli and Yenluo. They must miss you very much. Go. Don't be an eyesore in front of me. This young master isn't in a good mood right now. Higashio Motetsu snorted. Although he said that, she didn't see any displeasure on his face. She thought that he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She waved at him and walked back. Jin Xin and Xining nodded at Higashio Motetsu before catching up with the people in front of them. The smile on Higashio Motetsu's face disappeared little by little. He watched the crimson figure slowly walk away. Her long hair, which was tied up high, fluttered in the wind behind her. As she walked away, he had an illusion that she would walk out of his life like this. With one hand behind his back, he held the broken branch tightly in his palm. It seemed that he had been doing this subconsciously since just now. At this moment, he held it in front of him and looked at the broken branch with an indescribable expression. His heart was very uncomfortable, and he was in a very bad mood. Zimo, come out. After a moment, a blue and white figure stood in front of him. Young master, what are your orders? Xuanxi Zimo looked up, but when he saw his master's expression, he was suddenly stunned. He had been by his master's side for so long, but this was the first time he had seen his master so lost and lonely. Master, why did young Master Dongting suddenly appear? Xining asked curiously as she walked. Maybe he went to the shop and found out where we were going. Chu Qingyan felt very happy to be able to see her good friend at this time. However, during their conversation, Chu Qingyan had neglected one thing. From the beginning to the end, Higashio Motetsu had not explained to her why he had left Jiangnan to deal with. Every time they talked about it, he would change the topic with all kinds of different things. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows, but it was better not to mention it to the ice block. Otherwise, his vinegar jar would be sour again. Therefore, she thought about it and told the two of them not to reveal their encounter in the peach forest. Jean Xian and Xining looked at each other. Finally, Jean Xian said to the person who was about to board the carriage, Master, I think this matter can't be hidden. What? His Highness might have known that young Master Dongting had returned, so he sent someone to look for you. Ah, she lost her footing and almost fell off the carriage. If he knew this, then the ice block was too resourceful. Chapter 853. Higashio Motetsu fiddled with the broken branch in his hand as he asked, Do you know that Qingyan is about to get married? Why didn't you tell me? His expression was as indifferent as ever. Xuanxi Zimo observed his young master's expression for a moment, but didn't see anything amiss. He pondered for a moment, then finally decided to speak his mind. This subordinate thought that you would find out when you returned, so I didn't say much. At that time, they'd been traveling day and night. He'd felt that his young master was tired enough, so he hadn't reported any of the things that had happened in Jiangnan. Higashio Motetsu should have been angry, but when he heard his subordinate's words, he didn't know where to vent his anger. He clearly knew that when he heard Qingyan say that she was about to marry Xiao Su, his heart felt as if it had been pierced by something. Then, it started to hurt intensely, as if he couldn't believe that it was real. You and Xiao Su met when you were 10 years old. Weren't we the same? We've been together for 5 years. Although I wasn't by your side, didn't I miss you? Was it destined? Was there really such a thing as destiny in life? Not necessarily. Did it make a difference whether it was earlier or later? Not necessarily either. Wait a minute. Why did he suddenly have these thoughts? Higashio Motetsu's eyes were filled with confusion. Young master, are you all right? Xuanxi Zimo didn't hear anything for a long time. Under the pressure of his young master's powerful aura, he forced himself to raise his head. When he saw the panic on his young master's face, he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Higashio Motetsu's thoughts were thrown into disarray by his subordinate's sudden outburst. His expression quickly returned to its usual unreadable state. I'm fine. Young master, are you unhappy because Miss Chu is about to get married? Xuanxi Zimo asked cautiously. He was prepared to be kicked out of the room. He was the only person who couldn't resist touching the tiger's whiskers even though he knew that he would be implicated. Unhappy? Higashio Motetsu frowned. After waiting for half a day, Xuanxi Zimo heaved a sigh of relief when he didn't hear anything. But when he raised his head, he heard his young master say, Who says this young master is unhappy? Seeing her get married happily makes this young master happy for her. Is that so? But young master, your tone makes me panic. Do women nowadays all want to get married so badly? Then he heard his master's voice. He thought, after some thought, he mustered up his courage. To marrying. When? To be. Really? To. Where? To. Zimt. S his. Teat. Then master. Do you want to prepare a wedding gift for Miss Chu? Xuanqi Zimo asked. A birthday gift is enough. As for a wedding gift, there's no need for that. Higashio Motetsu seemed to have thought of something. His eyes lit up. Xuanqi Zimo didn't understand. Xishuan is about to be shaken. Do you think Xiao Su will have the energy to get married? Higashio Motetsu clapped his hands. His fingertips glowed. Xuanqi Zimo understood. You're right, young master. Higashio Motetsu smiled coldly. He straightened up. Just as he was about to go back to sleep, he heard his subordinate's hesitant question. Master, there's something this subordinate doesn't know if it's appropriate to ask. If it's not appropriate, then don't ask. Higashio Motetsu smiled wickedly, but his words were merciless. Young master is so direct. Then this subordinate feels that I should still ask. He recalled the palace master's instructions before he left and stiffened his neck. Young master, you treat Miss Chu very differently. If in the future we oppose her, what will you do? Higashio Motetsu glared coldly at the man in front of him. When did he become so bold? The palace lord said that the young master didn't need to be influenced by other emotions. He didn't need to be cold-blooded or dissolute. He needed to walk through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching him. Only then would he be able to complete the Moon Palace's hegemony. That was why he needed to remind the young master of his status at all times. There was no turning back. Although he felt his legs go weak under his master's glare, he still dutifully continued to speak. You only treat Miss Chu as a friend. In addition, the palace lord also mentioned the Moon Palace's plans for the future while we were in the capital. So, this subordinate boldly believes that if there comes a day when we become enemies, you won't care about Miss Chu anymore. Am I right? Although these words made him angry, they were all true. In the past few months in the capital, he had been thinking about one question. Zimo's question. In the end, when he nodded and agreed to his father's instructions, he had already decided his position. Just like what he said to the little girl, a man should aspire to travel far. And power was rotten but fragrant. He didn't chase after it, but his status didn't allow him to not fight for it. No, why was he thinking so much? He was supposed to be someone who was free from death, power, and the 7 emotions. He was supposed to be a bystander in this world. When everyone was sinking, he was supposed to be clear-headed. When everyone was clear-headed, he was more clear-headed than them. Separation in life and death, joy and joy, joy and anger, all had nothing to do with him. Everyone was a passerby in his life. If they got along, they would come. If they didn't, they would leave. No one would accompany anyone to the end of their lives. His father was, his mother was, and so was the little girl. So, what was there to care about? He smiled gently and patted the leaves that fell from the tree. With his hands behind his head, he strolled leisurely along the path he came from. Let's go. It's time to go back and get some sleep. Xuanqi Zimo had been anxiously waiting for his young master to scold him, but he didn't expect to hear such a light sentence. He stared blankly at his young master's back. Suddenly, he felt that the high-spirited, arrogant, and fearless young master had returned. He heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his words had worked. He immediately chased after him, but when he lifted his foot, a question flashed through his mind. Since his master had accepted the palace lord's request, why did he still make a trip thousands of miles away? He really didn't understand his young master. He didn't think about it for the time being. Instead, he quickly followed. Chu Qingyan didn't know about the conversation between Higashio Motetsu and Xuanqi Zimo in the forest. By the time she returned to the residence, it was already an hour later. Kai, why are you back so early? Father Chu, who was standing by the courtyard door and playing with glutinous rice ball, looked up and asked in confusion. When he saw the tanghulu in her hand, he immediately stood up from the ground. Father knew that Kai was the best. Chu Qingyan handed the tonghalu to her father, then asked, "Did anything happen in the courtyard today?" Father Chu licked the syrup. Then, when his daughter was about to leave, he added, "She didn't leave the study the whole day." Chu Qingyan staggered. "I know." Father Chu didn't realize what he had said. He lowered his head and asked Glutinous Rice Ball, "Do you want some tonghalu?" "Beg me, beg me." Glutinous Rice Ball held its head high and puffed its chest out. It ignored him and turned to leave. It wanted to find its mother and older brother. When Father Chu saw this, he immediately chased after it. "Okay, I'll give it to you." Chu Qingyan. Chapter 854. Standing in front of the study, Chu Qingyan gently knocked on the door. When she heard an answer from inside, she reached out to push it open. When she walked in and closed the door, she heard the sound of pages being flipped. She turned around and saw the tall and handsome figure behind the table. She was not in a rush to go forward, but rather leaned against the pillar and seriously looked over the person in front of her. In the study and bedroom, he basically did not wear a mask because everyone in the palace knew that the study and bedroom were forbidden areas. Other than Hualing and the others, no one dared to come in, so it was relatively hidden. At this moment, the silver mask was placed on the table, and his noble and otherworldly face was completely exposed to her. The sunlight outside shined in through the half-open window and fell on the table, half warm and half cold. The shadow of the bamboo swayed in the light, and the shadows were reflected on his sleeves. The soft and bright light flowed between his eyebrows, and his usually cold appearance was tainted with some warmth. If Dong Ting was a god that was both good and evil, then the big ice cube was a god that could not be violated. She didn't want to compare the two of them. She just felt that being surrounded by such outstanding men made her, as a woman, blush with shame. "Have you seen enough?" His voice was still light. "Even if you give me a lifetime, it still won't be enough." Being caught in the act, she was not embarrassed as she openly teased him. "You're welcome to come and see for a lifetime." Xiao Su returned her words to her. Chu Qingyan took advantage of him and said, "All right." She walked over and went around the table. She walked to his side and lowered her head to read the book in his hand. "Folk gossip? When did you become interested in this kind of book?" He clearly said that it was a light book before and told her to read less. Xiao Su closed the book and moved to the side. He took a cup of tea from the side and opened it. There was no steam coming from it. When he was about to call someone to change the tea, the person beside him stopped him. She giggled as she poked her head over. "It's good that it's not hot. I just came back and my mouth is dry. Quickly give me a drink." Chu Qingyan reached out her hand as she spoke. He lowered his head and touched the cup with his finger. Although it wasn't hot, it was still warm. He brought the tea to her mouth. Chu Qingyan did not suspect anything as she drank the tea in one gulp. After drinking it, she pursed her lips subconsciously. The tea was not hot, and it was sweet and refreshing. In an instant, her anxiety was soothed. After she thought about it, she was about to continue asking the question when she was suddenly pulled into the embrace of the person in front of her. She hadn't even sat down properly when she felt the scent of his ink right in front of her, and it really was right in front of her. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her lips that were moist with tea. His heart moved and he lowered his head to cover her lips. She was sitting in his arms, which made it easy for him to do bad things. Especially his restless hands. Her body was completely supported by him, so she could only reach out and wrap her arms around his neck to prevent herself from falling. She raised her head and endured the storm that he gave her, allowing him to move his hands up and down. Xiao Su's fingers slid up her inky black hair. Finally, his 5 fingers entered her hair and pulled her closer. This action caused her to be slightly moved. She felt like she was being cherished. After the kiss, the two of them were breathing unsteadily. She closed her eyes and was too embarrassed to look at him. Although she was a bit confused at the beginning and was forced to endure his attacks, he was already very familiar with her and she quickly fell in love with him. She couldn't help but gradually respond to him as she fell in love with him. In the end, she was drowned by his storm and could only float with him in the waves of the sea. Xiao Su lowered his head and saw that the person in his arms had buried her head tightly in his chest. That scorching hot breath poured onto his clothes. He was only wearing a thin shirt, so the hot breath penetrated and came close to his skin. His throat moved, and his whole body heated up again. He forced himself to suppress this heat and took the initiative to talk about the previous topic to distract her. In this book, there is information about the customs of marriage among the people. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan couldn't care less about her embarrassment and immediately raised her head. Are you cramming on this knowledge? It can be considered a last-minute cramming. His fingers caressed her hair. The little fellow's hair was very soft and comfortable to touch. Don't you have the housekeeper and mother? Moreover, you're so busy, you should leave these things to them. She was very good at being a hands-off shopkeeper, so when she heard him say this, she was puzzled at first and couldn't help but ask. What can be more important than our marriage? His fingers curled around the ends of her hair. His body leaned back and lazily leaned on the table. The corner of his mouth slightly hooked up as he continued, Moreover, I prefer to do things myself when it comes to your matters. These words were even sweeter than those flashy sweet nothings that had no substance. Chu Qingyan's charming face immediately turned red. But the person in front of her who had just finished whispering sweet nothings didn't seem to be aware of it. Seeing her flushed face, he even pretended to touch her face with the back of his hand. Why is it so hot? She averted her eyes, wanting to find an excuse to dodge it. But when she raised her head, she didn't miss the teasing look in his eyes. She suddenly realized that this guy was teasing her. She couldn't help but get angry. Crossing her arms, she looked at him with a cold smile. Do things yourself? But the food I eat is made by the kitchen and the clothes I wear are washed by the servants. If you really want to do things yourself, then I'll leave these things to you. She saw his lips curl into a smile that was as gorgeous as a summer flower. Before she could regain her senses from his beautiful smile, he had already approached her and whispered in her ear, I don't think I should be useful in this kind of place. If you want me to feed you, I'm more than happy to do so. His strong existence couldn't be ignored. Coupled with this whisper, it made her instantly stunned on the spot. Especially when he enunciated the word, feed, it made people's imagination run wild. Also, if you're willing to borrow my hands for things like changing and taking off clothes, I'm very willing to serve you. As Xiao Su said this, his eyes faintly fell on her collar and belt. She only wanted to win back around, but she didn't expect to be blocked by him, and the most hateful thing was that she was taken advantage of by him. Ginger is indeed spicier with age. Chu Qingyan felt that her face could steam an egg. She quickly reached out her hand to block his invasive eyes and angrily said, Why aren't you reading your book? You'll affect me if you're here. A certain person boasted shamelessly. What? You can read your book, I won't be in your way. She was confused by him. Your existence is the biggest disturbance to me. As he said this, his hand covered her hand that was placed on his eyes. When he pulled it down, she saw the black whirlpool in his eyes. Suddenly, her face was covered by his warm fingertips, and she heard his low sigh by her ear. Stop squirming around. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to endure it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.